Please rise for invocation by Reverend Glenn Rice of Port Orange United Church of Christ.
Thank you. Let's be in prayer. Most loving and living Lord, we gather here tonight before you to give you honor and to give you praise. You are the source of all that is good and the source of all of our many blessings. We are truly blessed. We truly are to be here in the city of Port Orange, where we live and work, where we pray, and where we especially thank you for every gift that you have given us. We thank you for the opportunity to safely come and gather together this evening, and we ask for your hand of blessing on this city council meeting. We ask you to guide and direct our meeting so it is full of wisdom, productivity, and respect for one another. Thank you for helping us to accomplish our work and our goals here tonight. And we pray all these things in the name of Jesus, the Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Glenn. You're welcome to see you. Will the clerk call the roll?
You're welcome. Councilmember Ford.
Present.
Councilmember Tremont.
Here.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Here.
Mayor Burnett.
Here. Proclamation. I love it when we have these really good long proclamations that I signed weeks ago, and I forget my glasses to read them, but here goes anyway. Whereas the novel coronavirus disease, COVID-19, is a severe and acute respiratory illness and can spread among humans through respiratory transmission and cause symptoms similar to those of influenza and, in some cases, death. And whereas on March 13th, President Donald Trump issued a proclamation declaring a national emergency. Whereas on March 9th, Governor DeSantis did the same, and on March 13th, a state of emergency was declared in the county of Volusia. Whereas resolution number 20-12 was approved March 16, 2020, declaring a local state of emergency throughout the city of Port Orange as a result of COVID-19, which continues to exist. And whereas on April 29th, Governor DeSantis issued executive order number 2012 as modified on May 9th, and executive order 20-123 on May 14th, in response to the recommendations set forth in Phase 1 of the plan issued by the Task Force to Reopen Florida, and adopted a phased approach to remove or decrease certain restrictions imposed pursuant to Executive Order number 20-91, the Safer at Home Order. And whereas June 3rd, 2020, Governor DeSantis issued Executive Order 20-139, moving all counties in Florida, other than Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties, into Phase 2 of the plan issued by the Task Force to Reopen Florida, which order supersedes Executive Order number 20-91, the Safer at Home Order, and supersedes in part and extends and modified other provisions of Executive Order 20-112. Whereas, based on recent information and data from the Florida Department of Health, the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Volusia County has increased significantly since additional reopening was authorized under Phase 2 of the Governor's plan for Florida's recovery, which increase may result in additional deaths. And whereas in response to the dramatic increase of COVID-19 cases, the Florida Medical Association, the state's largest physician organization, encourages all local officials to adopt regulations requiring individuals to wear face coverings in public places. And whereas based on advice from medical professionals, the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in Volusia County and the city of Port Orange will increase exponentially if additional measures to stop the spread or slow the spread of COVID-19 are not instituted. And whereas the United States Center for Disease Control and Prevention has expressly found that COVID-19 spreads mainly from person to person through respiratory droplets produced when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or talks. These droplets can land in the mouth and nose of people who are nearby or be inhaled into the lungs. Studies and evidence on infection control report that these droplets usually travel around 6 feet or 2 arms lengths, and whereas the CDC referenced recent studies that a significant portion of individuals with coronavirus lack symptoms and are asymptomatic, and those who eventually develop symptoms, pre-symptomatic, can transmit the virus to others interacting in close proximity before showing symptoms. And whereas the CDC therefore specifically recommends that as businesses and communities reopen and people resume their daily activities, people should wear face coverings to slow the spread of COVID-19, particularly in public settings where other social distancing measures are difficult to maintain. And whereas cloth face coverings are relatively inexpensive and readily available, as the CDC states, that they can be made from household items and provide online guidance for making do-it-yourself coverings for people who cannot or do not want to buy one from increasing sources of producing and selling coverings. And whereas the County of Volusia has instituted a public awareness campaign called Step Up Volusia to reinforce the continuing need for residents to practice hand washing, social distancing, and the wearing of face coverings. Whereas the Mayor of the City of Port Orange is authorized to issue proclamations consistent with the authority provided with the city charter, and whereas mitigating the effects of COVID-19 and protecting the health of its citizens and visitors is a high priority of the City of Port Orange. And whereas the Mayor fully supports the recommendations of the CDC that every person living, working, or visiting or doing business in the City of Port Orange should wear face coverings of material that securely covers a person's nose and mouth and remains affixed in place without the use of one's hands, whether store-bought or homemade, concurrent with the CDC guidelines for the duration of the declared emergency. And whereas the Mayor fully supports the recommendation of the CDC that every person living, working, visiting, or doing business in the City of Port Orange should wear face coverings in any indoor location other than home or residence. And whereas the Mayor fully supports the recommendations of the CDC that every person living, working, or visiting, or doing business in the City of Port Orange should wear face coverings in public outdoor locations. And whereas the Mayor encourages all businesses to prohibit entry of any person who is not wearing a face covering with the exception of persons under the age of 2, persons observing social distancing in accordance with CDC guidelines, persons for whom face coverings would cause impairment due to an existing health condition, and persons in a business or profession who do not have interactions with the public, and persons working in a business or profession who maintains social distancing from other persons, and persons working in a business or profession where use of face coverings would prevent them from performing the duties of the business or profession, and persons exercising while maintaining social distancing, and persons eating or drinking, and public safety, fire, and other life safety and healthcare personnel, as their personal protective equipment requirements will be governed by the respective agencies, and shall not apply when a person who is hearing impaired needs to use the mouth of someone wearing a face covering in order to communicate. Now, therefore, I, Donald Burnett, Mayor of the City of Port Orange, Florida, do hereby proclaim the month of August 2020 as Step Up Port Orange Month and in the City of Port Orange. This month will highlight the necessity of washing hands, maintaining social distancing, and the wearing of face coverings when social distancing is not attainable through the City of Port Orange, as provided above, and I urge all residences and businesses to do the same in order to slow the spread. In witness thereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Port Orange, Florida, to be affixed this 4th day of August in the year of our Lord 2020. And with that, with my signature and the seal of the city, it is so declared. And that's the last time I'll let the city attorney's office write a proclamation for me. Just saying, Matt.
Second. Move to approve all resolutions should be 100 words or less.
That's a big one.
Consent agenda, public comments on consent agenda items. I see a hand. Hey, Robert.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, 1425 Dexter Drive, Port Orange. My concern has to do with 8B, the new brush truck. Although they did a good job of rationalizing why we need a new truck, I could not find anything to justify a sole source procurement. There was only one bidder, and it would seem to me that you would require them to defend why they would want to go and buy from one bidder rather than go out and re-procure. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to anything on the consent agenda? There being none, may I have a motion for approval for the agenda for the meeting, tonight's meeting?
Mayor, I want to pull one of the items from consent. Item 11.
I knew you were going to do that. If you didn't, I was going to request it. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting first?
So moved.
Second. All in favor signifies by saying aye.
Aye.
May I have a motion in regards to the consent agenda items?
Motion to remove item 11.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to remove item 11 from consent agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion
Any
approved.
opposed? I bet that, I don't have to hurt anybody over that
We're
one?
good there.
Good.
Motion approved consent agenda items 7 through 10 and 12.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, a proper second, to approve the consent agenda items 7 through 10 and item 12. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bashir.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes. 5-0. Item 11. Scott?
You, Scott?
Just a procedural, I want this to be I recommend a roll call vote for this particular item. I think it's an very honorable thing, very deserving thing, and proud to see this get taken care of and get this done. So,
I can't wait to see the plat go up. Do I have a motion for approval of item 11?
Motion approved item 11.
Second. Excuse me.
No.
Please.
No. Chase, you're not. Chase, go away.
Second.
The record reflect that Marilyn Ford gave the second on that one. This item 11 is approval to designate the Riverwalk Trail as the Robert E. Ford Trail. And I can't wait to see the plaque, and I can't wait to see as we continue to expand that trail. Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bashir.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Whopping big plaque, Jake, just saying.
In blue.
The city council meeting will be in recess as we enter the joint special meeting of the Town Center Community Redevelopment Agency and the city council of the city of Port Orange. I now call the special joint meeting of the Town Center Community Redevelopment Agency and the Port Orange City Council to order. Clerk, call the roll for Town Center.
Ray Donadio. Stan Schmidt.
Yes.
John Burnett.
Here.
Drew Bastian.
Here.
Scott Stiltner.
Here.
Chase Tremont.
Here.
Marilyn Ford.
Present.
Roll call for members of the city council.
Mayor Burnett.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Here.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Here.
Councilmember Tremont.
Here.
Councilmember Ford.
Present.
I think we will allow for Ray Donadio's absence as he's in Ohio greeting a new grandchild,
Oh, good for him.
who I got to see the picture of before he did. Do you have an objection to the notice of joint meeting? Hearing no objection, the notice is accepted. Community Development has requested that all items be opened together for purposes of discussion. I want to advise that City Council will only be voting on item 13, first reading of Ordinance 20-27. All other items are for the City Council discussion only tonight. City Council will vote at second reading on all those items, and that being said, the Vice Chair, Mr. Stan Schmidt, will call for the vote by the CRA for all items, and I will call for the vote by the City Council. Items to be opened. Opening item 13, which is an ordinance 20-27, Second Amendment to the Riverwalk amended and restated Master Development Agreement. Item 14, the Second Amendment to the Property Exchange and Escrow Agreement. Item 15, the Second Amendment to the Economic Development Incentive Agreement. And item 16, License Agreement for Temporary Off-Site Parking at 3571 Ridgewood Avenue, the former Cardwell Funeral Home property. Mr. Berman,
Good evening.
make
Tim
us all a little smarter on this.
I will try my best. Tim Berman, Community Development. Tonight we're doing the overview of all four of those Riverwalk agenda items. Basically we're going to do is provide an overview of the proposed amendment along with also the agreements that are being requested to be amended, and then allow for comment consideration on all items by the CRA and then also City Council. So basically the primary components of the proposal by Halifax River Partner is first is to amend the Master Development Agreement. This has a couple parts to it. They're requesting to remove the language regarding recording the plat by a specific date. The reason that information was put in there back in 2016 was we wanted to ensure that we got specific easements and specific title of the park property. We have secured all that already. We've basically got what we intended to get without having to record the plat, so there's no need for the city to have the plat recorded. since we received all the documents that we needed to make sure that we have there. So the request is to remove that recording date. That way the developer or the property owner can record on their own, since we received everything that we were requiring back in 2016. The second is to request an extension of the completion date for the restaurant in phase 1 and the site improvements for that to go to September 20th, 2021. And also to provide a clause in there too that would allow the city council the authority to consider a 6-month extension to that time frame. If at that time it's necessary, then they would be required to get all mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-in inspections completed and approved. So basically that means pretty much the building is for the most part completed, constructed, and they're just doing the finishing touches inside then. So we thought that would be useful if this gets approved then, because a year time frame to get a restaurant of that size built would be pushing it, and we didn't want to have to do another MDA amendment, 4 months of work to ask for 2 months then. So this provides, again, the council the ability to grant or deny that then, basically as coming before you just at a meeting, you know, it's next September potentially then. So that's the language that was added in there then.
So to clarify, they're asking not for a year, they're asking for 18 months.
They're asking, yes, they're basically asking for a year in this MDA, and then the ability to come and request the 6 months on there. The 6 months is not guaranteed. It's still basically a request that would have to come before council.
And then I had a question, just to make sure I understand you. But when you said they still would have all the rough-in and everything about the, let's say, exterior of the structure and the, you know, electric and all that would be in, are you saying by September 21, and then the finishing touches would be in that next 6 months?
Yes.
Okay.
Typically, you know,
So they'd be substantially complete,
you
but
would see a
without the
substantial
CO.
building there, and it's
Mhm.
basically just trying to, you know, kind of, you know, finish up the, you know, the outside of it, the exterior finishes and stuff like that then.
Okay.
We just thought from talking with the building guys that a 1 year was very quick turn, you know, pushing it then if it got approved, and we just wanted to have that built in there just in case, and that's why we put in those kind of those clauses there about having all those rough-in inspections, because we typically see the buildings that have those inspections, they are very close to turning the corner to be approved, and again, it's not giving them 6 months, they still have to come before you and make that request, and council would have to approve it at that time then.
Forgive my candor, but, you know, we say it's just a year, but they've already had a year. Okay.
So hypothetically, let's say that this gets approved, they're in the midst of doing that, and then they're 70% into it, and then the council decides not to do the extension of 6 months. What happens?
They would basically still, I mean, if that happened then, the master development agreement would go away, all the other agreements would go away. However, this is a little bit different than the other master development agreements we've seen expire. This one, it has current underlying zoning underneath it. So the zoning that's underneath it still would allow a restaurant, so they could continue going forward with developing the restaurant. They just wouldn't get the economic incentive agreements, such as the TIF agreement from the CRA on there then. Some of the other items too, the property exchange for the funeral home, that would not go through then. So if they were 70% done and you did not allow that additional 6 months then, they could still carry on with constructing their building, get a CO and operate a restaurant there. They're just not getting those economic incentives in that property.
Or stop.
Or stop and we could have
a
a
partially
church.
built something like the church we had out at Williamson and Madeline forever.
Correct.
Okay.
I wasn't sure whether we were holding questions or answering around. I had one back about the plat recording.
Yes.
I wanted legal, whoops,
He's coming right
here he
back.
comes, legal. I understand everything you said, that essentially the city has accomplished what it needs to, so it really doesn't need the plat recording. But I'm wondering from a legal perspective, is there any value to requiring a plat recording, such as required in the first MDA?
Mr. Jones?
He's thinking.
Oh, okay. I didn't know the year.
I don't know that there's any value on a specific date to require. I mean, obviously they're gonna have to plat before.
I mean, this is the plat right here. This is kind of what was envisioned there. The main thing, the need for the plat was really to secure Tract A, which was a trail to make sure the city had ownership of Tract A. And then when we did in 16, the thought was basically record the plat and then deed over Tract A to the city. We were able to find another way to get that deed over to the city. The city currently owns Tract A, and that was, you know, the main concern. And then we've got all the other necessary easements that go along with it without having the plat then. So the plat really, you know, just kind of divides up the land there and into those specific kind of lots that were predetermined for that project then.
But I think legally it means something. That's what I'm asking the question. So is there,
It allows for separate ownership. I mean, once it's platted, they can sell those pieces off. To the extent that they're tied to each other for regulatory reasons, for parking or those type of things, it really won't have any impact whether it's developed as one, under one ownership or multiple. I don't think it's gonna have a lot of impact for the city.
okay,
altogether.
thank you.
It's also too a replat, so it's basically replatting existing platted lot lines already then too.
Okay.
So it's plat already there, and we're kind of just shuffling the lot lines around to get that, and so.
Okay, thank you.
Right. I think the next thing we were going to go over then was the second kind of consideration is the Economic Development Incentive Agreement. Again, this was approved back in 2016. What this is proposing to do is to amend the dates in the schedule of completion for projects in that agreement, and that schedule for completion of phase 1, 2, and 3 basically allowed them, if that was completed as outlined, it allows them to get their economic incentive in terms of the TIF agreements then. So phase 1 is the restaurant, so that would be in the proposal here pushed out to be the September 2021 date. Phase 2 and 3 were the condo towers, and those had specific dates to get started and get completed by. One of the towers too, I believe, had to have building permits submitted here in September of this year and completed in 2023, and then phase 3 had to be submitted in 2023 and completed by 2025. What we've done is proposal has been to revise to get rid of those start dates and just say both towers need to be completed by September of 2025. That's a little bit more straightforward there in terms of getting those towers a completion date on those then. And the last item was to add an additional $65,000 in credit for building permit fees. That basically would come from the building permit fee fund, separate than general fund. This would be the building permit fund then, in addition to the existing $90,000 of credit that was approved back in 2016. Just for kind of comparison, that $90,000 that was approved in 2016 basically is pretty much with the eventual issuance of a building permit for the restaurant and the site improvement inspections would pretty much use up that $90,000. So if approved, the $65,000 would most likely go to building permit fees for condo towers if and when those are submitted in terms of development wise then.
What's the logic between offering them an additional credit, particularly when there's been delays?
The proposal here was kind of the next step then, was the, looking for, essentially asking for the request for the 1-year extension. Was the proposal that came in from the developer was to pay for the construction, or for the design of the trail, phase 3 of the Riverwalk trail. The city was currently in the process of getting estimates on that. That came in at around $95,000 for design of that trail. So the intent is to have the developer again pay for that, have the engineer prepare that then. So they felt that basically that essentially the extension request would be essentially $30,000, and then to offset the rest of that then would be credit toward the building permit fee side. That's why that 65 came in additional credit then.
So
Again, that could only be used on building permit fees, and if nothing gets built after 2025, the credit would go away then.
So essentially, they're giving the city, if you will, an incentive, and we would be ahead at least $30,000, and if they don't make good on the condos, we'd really be ahead $90,000.
Correct. And also
correct?
correct.
Okay.
And also too that in terms of the plans getting done within this year, it allows us to line up for grant funding, so we could try to basically reduce the construction costs on the city side by securing more grants in. So it benefits in that way then.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last, so that's mentioned here, and the last
Tim,
item.
hold on
Oh.
section 2, I got a question. What's to prevent them from, you know, if they say, well, we're not gonna build the condos and they sell the property, do those credits transfer?
With the agreement then?
Yeah. If they say, we're not doing the condos, we're gonna sell that property, do those credits go with that to the new buyer?
The agreement would have to come back as the new ownership on that property, to come back for the city for, you know, renegotiation, so that would be at that time then.
But it wouldn't be automatic.
No, it would
Is
have
that-
to
I
come
mean,
back
I-
before this group here.
So the agreement's attached to the owner, not to the property.
Correct. And also the agreement was written, in order to get those incentives, it had to follow that specific development guidelines there, which is basically that specific time frame and specific uses. It calls out, if you look at that agreement attachment, that the condo had to be 130 units or less, at a 300, I think it was $30 million value. So there's very specific. So if a new owner came in and wanted to build a mixed-use development at 3 stories, that wouldn't
Be
fall within that
whole.
development guidelines, and
Yep.
that agreement would have to be revised, and then the council could make, you know, suggestions at that time as when that agreement came back before them.
I just don't get why they need the extra $65,000 credit.
I think it was, again, it's kind of bespoke of, that was something, you know, when staff was working, basically, we saw as an opportunity to get that trail designed,
Yeah.
and we proposed it to them. They came back with, they felt that, you know, essentially $30,000 for this 1-year extension was, you know, worthy then. And that's why we basically were offering that 65 in credit. And again, that credit, if you're looking at basically doing a building permit, in order to start construction of a condo to get it completed by 2025, that building permit has to be submitted to us and most likely approved probably by the middle of 2023. So it's only got about 2.5 years to use that money, and I mean, we're still trying to get our restaurant built after 5 years then. So,
Okay.
It's a trade-off of sorts.
yeah, we basically staff feels that this trade-off, you know, benefits Councilman Ford. It benefits us, and will continue to benefit us in getting that trail design then, moving forward then. And as we mentioned too, if this project doesn't get approved tonight, the way the zoning's set up on it is that the property owner still retains every right to continue building a restaurant on that property, or to let it sit, because he still has development rights then.
Quick, so do those development rights ever expire?
No, it's zoning. That's basically the
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha.
like
It's
the
a zone.
yeah. So the way it is, this is the zoning on place on the property here, and this area right here is where the master development agreement overlays, and all it does is provide some dimensional requirements. It basically gives some relief to some setbacks to allow the condo to be developed. So if the MDA would go away, he still has mixed use zoning, which would allow a restaurant there, and would still have the outline for 2 condo towers per the zoning. He'd probably have to tweak some things then, but he would still have that as, you know, the MDA goes away, he doesn't lose those rights anymore.
Okay, gotcha.
Tim, just before you go forward, I just want to confirm something and clarify again. You've already said it, but I want to be very clear because I've been on the fence for this one for quite some time, frankly, because there's positives and negatives both sides. Confirm again, as Councilman Stiltner alluded to. They could build a building, skeleton structure could be there. We can extend it 6 months later. They can decide whether or not they want to continue or not. So there is, just for clarification purposes, by an agreement, we would open ourselves to the possibility of creating now a Ridgewood eyesore.
I mean, if we approve this tonight, if this got approved tonight and they started, there's always a possibility that they could not complete the project. But that we have that with every project that we start here in Port Orange, that possibility. And, you know, we've just had, you know, while it was a major one, we just had that one church property that's kind of there, but everything else we start eventually gets through then. But I can't, you know, guarantee that wouldn't happen, but.
Yeah, I know you, I understand the position.
Trust me, I don't want to go through that
This is
again.
not just any property.
Except that the incentives, to some degree, get held hostage here. And that's what it is, right? So that's kind of what.
And the development team's here to kind of talk more about
Sure,
timelines and
sure.
stuff like that than
Yeah.
specific, but.
We definitely want to hear that.
And then the last kind of component of that would just be the property exchange for Cardwell, and also the license agreement to allow the use of that property then just kind of are tied to the MDA being approved. If the MDA extension's approved, then those naturally just get approved because they're tied with the development requirements there. So those are kind of the main components then. I think we've kind of already hit on kind of when things would get built here.
I
Oh,
have
sorry.
real quick, back to the off-site parking.
Yes.
When we do that license agreement, is HRP responsible if something happens
Yes.
with their vehicles or somebody connected to their
Yes,
project?
that's all tied
Okay.
in with the license agreement that's approved
Goes
through the
to
city
the-
attorney's
okay.
office then.
Okay, thank you.
This kind of just summarizes basically the phasing plan that we've got here. I think we've already kind of
Can you see
hit
it?
on everything here with the towers. Basically the yellow and the pink would be in 2025 with the restaurant in 2021. All of phase 1 in green would be if approved then. So the main considerations are pretty much boil down to is to give that 1-year extension with the caveat that they could request a 6-month if they meet certain guide requirements then, and then also the amendment to the economic incentive agreement. And that is kind of the end of the presentation. I don't know if you've got any more questions, but I know that the development team's here too,
Let's see
and
from the
would like to
developer,
present.
I'm sure we'll
Hear
have
from
more
them.
questions. Mr. Brock.
If you need it. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Jeff Brock, 444 Seabreeze Boulevard, Suite 900, Daytona Beach, Florida, representing the developer of Riverwalk, Halifax River Partners, and its principal, Joe Tanasowski, who's here in the front row. Since he took over as a successor developer, there's been nobody more for the Riverwalk, moving forward the Riverwalk project, as evidenced by his construction of the Bob Ford Trail and the dedication of that trail to the citizens of Port Orange at a cost of over $1.2 million. He's also, during this pandemic, not been sitting on his hands. He has got the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing design for the restaurant done and submitted for staff approval. During that time, the manufacturers of the custom kitchen equipment were shut down, so our design team could not speak with them and get the specs in order to finish those drawings, so we had a delay of approximately 4 months. Even when the lockdown was lifted, a lot of those manufacturers didn't come back online because they made restaurant equipment and nobody was really building restaurants, and so a lot of them are still shut down. But we got it done, we got it submitted. The good news is our tenant operator is still in business. Their restaurant in Stewart is back open. They are committed to Riverwalk. When we now we're getting a little bit of operational experience with COVID in the restaurant business and their business down in Stewart. Outdoor seating is more critical than ever. So we have redesigned the second floor of the proposed restaurant to reduce the banquet hall and have rooftop seating. So we've got a little design change going through right now, but that's moving forward. The developer is spending money. He's not sitting on his hands. He's committed to get the restaurant done. The restaurant operator is committed to get it done. As far as stopping a project once it's started, we have construction loans and all that will be in place, and the lender's not going to let it stop. So it will get done once we break ground. So that will not be an issue for you. If you got any questions for me, and also to show his commitment, is we were proposed by staff if we could help out getting the rest of the trail done and designed, and to help that out, we offered to pay for the civil engineering to get done at a cost of about $95,000. In return, we would ask for the extension plus the $65,000 worth of fees that would really be applicable to the towers once they got under construction. And so that's the ask, is the extension of about a year. If we're not done, we'd have to come back to you to ask for that extension for the other 6 months. What that was kind of driving force is we're going to build the shell. Our tenant's going to do the build out. And so we build the shell and we do our part that's in our control. And if our tenant, doesn't get their part, we want the ability to come and ask for that extension. But that's kind of the background on that.
So if you do have to come back here in a year, whoever Joe hires to replace you will come before us and.
Yes. Yes.
Questions?
Mr. Brock,
Yes, sir.
what is, let's say this gets approved tonight, what is their, realistically, what is their expected start date?
The redesign of the second floor, my understanding is those drawings will be in to staff within 3 weeks, 3 to 4. And we've already got things out for bid. So,
So are we talking end of September? Or,
late August, September.
I'm not going to hold you to a firm date, but what's the
Yeah.
expected?
I would say November, by November 1st, we'd be breaking ground. We have to do some seawall work there and
Okay.
replace some dead men, so that part can kind of start, and some of the site work.
Yeah.
But as far as, seeing foundations, I would say by November.
Okay.
Certainly
Thank you.
happy to see the seawall work get done regardless of
Yeah.
progress.
Yeah, got to have a sturdy seawall before you build a restaurant. I
push
get
out on
that.
it. Right.
Well, there's a lot of erosion problems down there that
Yeah.
will solve.
Yeah.
Stan, haven't heard from you. You got any questions?
No, we kind of beat this up in the planning commission. So I think all my questions were answered back then.
So I keep forgetting this is your second bite at this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we are here with a recommendation of approval from the planning commission.
That is correct. Any other questions?
Just a general comment for you, and maybe in regards to Drew's comment, is we already held them to a timeline. That's why they're back, right? So I think Joseph knows this. He and I have talked. His tenant and I have talked. I traveled to South Florida, saw their business down there. I'm a fan of the project. I want to be clear. I'm a fan of the project. I reached out to Joseph and I said, whatever we can do to help promote this to be a success. I think the residents of Port Orange would view this as a success. I think it would be a great destination. It's a great project. But my concern is that we keep making these deals and these extensions, and I of course opposed this last time. So I'm going to oppose it this time. But I will tell you that had there been some significant progress, what I would consider significant process, turning dirt, starting the project, all those things that everybody stood before us a year ago and told us they would be able to get done in that timeline, and we questioned that timeline then. That didn't occur, and I get, we get developers in here all the time, but we also see a lot of development getting done through all of this. So I just want to say that I remain a fan of the project, even though I'm not going to support this extension. I'm a fan of the project, and as soon as that, man, I can't wait to see it, and I'm on board, and I'll help promote it and encourage folks. I think our residents will see it, but I think our residents are just growing tired of it's another delay, it's another request for another extension. It's just, it's just been going on forever, and so I just, brief comments about that.
I appreciate the
all your
comments,
comments.
but I also would say, for a developer to come out of the ground in the middle of a pandemic with a restaurant is a really gutsy thing and shows his commitment.
Right, but so if you go back and look at the record, Jeff, the timeline that was given to us the last time that everybody was here, this would have been breaking ground way before a pandemic occurred. Just to be honest about what was said.
Right.
So those are my concerns. That being said, like I don't want to beat this up for you.
Okay.
I'm a fan of the project. I'm a fan of what Joseph's trying to do. I get those things, but we are just at the point I feel like at some point we got to stop just remaking deals that aren't getting upheld, and so that's just my comments on that.
Let's hear from the public. Anyone here care to, we'll come back to us. Anyone here care to speak to the item?
Anybody?
Okay, it's back to us.
Yeah, just also a general comment. I don't really have any more questions. The past is typically the key of predicting the future, and you've done great work, and I always appreciate when you're coming before us. I'm having a very difficult time with this one, to be quite honest with you, because I wrestled with approving an extension last year, and to open myself. there are financial benefits for us to approve this, and I appreciate them willing to come to the table with that, and that's really the biggest tug for allowing me to side on that particular position. But the visual in my head that keeps popping up of having an opportunity for an eyesore down there, and I get that, we make that risk with any development, but this just isn't any development. At the end of the day, you know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me for 10 more years, God help me, because nobody else can. So I'm not sure I can support it this time.
I think what it comes down to for me is that if you're coming here hat in hand without offering us anything, it would be very difficult for me to say no. The two things that you do bring to us is that, one, we've got a beautiful trail down there right now, and that's evidence of what can happen, and we appreciate that. We would not have that without Joe's commitment in the development. The other thing is that, like Chase, I'm looking back over 23 years. Now, two different faces here. 23 years of what could be, what could be, what could be. If you weren't bringing something back to the table here now, in our ability to have the designs on the second phase, we can't go get funding. We can't go get grant funding for the next trail phase until we have that design done. And we're certainly, and that's one way to do it without committing city funds to do it. And I appreciate that show of good faith in that regard. I really do. This is far from perfect, and has been. Painstakingly slow progress over the years, but now we've got a beautiful park and we've got a beautiful trail, and my emphasis now is what is it going to take to take care of the public elements of Riverwalk, and the private elements of that, well, that's on you guys. So I appreciate the fact that you're pitching in something here with this proposal that will help us continue to take care of the public elements of Riverwalk. That 10-acre park and trail that we have is a huge success.
Oh, yeah.
Easily our busiest park in the city. And it's only 2 years old. That's absolutely amazing. Any other comments?
Yeah, you know, there's all those things our mothers and fathers taught us, those little sayings, and I'm reminded, you don't cut off your nose to spite your face. And I think that's where we are today. We're frustrated with the progress, but I think if we don't approve it, we're cutting off our nose to spite our face.
Yeah.
And ultimately, my husband was here for probably 12 of those years and was very frustrated.
At least.
But
yeah.
he saw, and I have seen progress since you became the sole partner, Mr. Atanisowski. So I would encourage council, don't cut off your nose to spite your face. I think this is a project that is slow in the birthing process, but I believe it's going to come to fruition.
Any other comments or questions from council?
Yeah, Jeff, I mean, as you, the delays are like driving me nuts because it's been going on for such a long time, and it's not, you know, your fault or his. I don't want to blame anybody, but it's just taken a long time. It is nice to see that there's some give, you know, for the further development of the trail, and that's kind of, you know, I'm leaning towards this, but I got to tell you, if they're back here in a year and asking for 6 months, not going to be happy about that. You know, I want to see the project succeed, and I want it to move forward. I really don't want any more delays. But I know if this is voted down, then you know, we're kind of starting from square one, and if
Cutting
you guys
your nose
get,
off to spite your
yeah,
face.
and then you guys pull out and somebody else comes in, it's probably going to take 2 to 3 years before anything gets done. So I get that part too, but I want to see progress.
No other comments? With that, I want to remind everyone that the City Council will only be voting on the first reading of the ordinance. All other items were for City Council discussion only tonight. City Council will vote on second reading for all the items, at a later date. That being said, Vice Chair Stan Schmidt will call for the vote for all the CRA items. Item 13 is an ordinance at number 20-27. I'm sorry, ordinance number 2020-27. A lot of numbers there. An ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, approving the Second Amendment to the Riverwalk amended and restated Master Development Agreement, providing for conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for a second date.
Motion approved.
No, what, I can't ask for this motion. Vice Chair
I thought you were
Schmidt.
getting a little ahead of yourself, but that's all right.
That's
Can we have a motion on this, please?
Absolutely. Motion approved, ordinance number 2020-27.
And a second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Will you please call the roll?
Don Burnett,
Yes.
Drew Bastian,
Yes.
Scott Stiltner,
No.
Chase Tremont,
No.
Marilyn Ford.
Yes.
Stan Schmidt.
Yes.
By my math, that's 4-2, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We need a motion to recommend approval, wait a second, 2027. We just did that, okay. Now I need a motion for the City Council on item 13, ordinance number 2020-27. May I have said motion?
I move to approve ordinance number 2020-27, approving the Second Amendment to the Riverwalk amended and restated Master Development Agreement as recommended by the Planning Commission and Port Orange Town Center CRA.
Do I have a second?
I will second it.
We have a motion, proper second. Any other comments? Being none, call the roll for the City Council.
Councilmember Ford,
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont,
No.
Councilmember Stiltner.
No.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-2.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Schmidt,
Should
will
we
you
take that
ask
then?
for a motion by the CRA on item 14?
Yes. I ask for motion by the CRA for item 14, Second Amendment to the Property Exchange and Escrow Agreement, the Cardwell Funeral Home Project.
Move to approve. Go ahead, Mayor.
Okay, I move to approve Second Amendment to the Property Exchange and Escrow Agreement, Cardwell Funeral Home Property.
We
I'll
have a
second.
motion and a second?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bastian. Any other discussion? Will you please call the roll of the CRA?
Don Burnett,
Yes?
Drew Bastian,
Yes.
Scott Stiltner.
No.
Chase Tremont,
No.
Marilyn Ford.
Yes.
Stan Schmidt.
Yes.
I've got 4-2, and will Vice Chair Schmidt ask for a motion by the CRA on item 15?
I will ask for a motion by the CRA on item 15, which is the Second Amendment to the Economic Development Incentive Agreement.
Anybody want to make that motion for him?
Move to approve the Second Amendment to the Economic Development Incentive Agreement with Halifax River Partners.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do I have any discussion? If not, will the clerk please read the CRA roll?
Don Burnett,
Yes?
Drew Bastian.
Yes.
Scott Stiltner,
No.
Chase Tremont,
No.
Marilyn Ford.
Yes.
Stan Schmidt.
Yes.
You've got 4-2.
4-2. The next item, I would ask for a motion by the CRA on item 16, license agreement for temporary off-site parking at 3571 Ridgewood Avenue, the former Cardwell Funeral Home.
I move to
Partners.
approve the license agreement for temporary off-site parking at 3571 Ridgewood Avenue, the former Cardwell Funeral Home property, subject to City Council final adoption of ordinance number 2020-27.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the CRA roll?
Don Burnett,
Yes?
Drew Bastian.
Yes.
Scott Stiltner.
No.
Chase Tremont.
No.
Marilyn Ford.
Yes.
Stan Schmidt.
Yes.
Any other further business to be brought before the members of the Town Center Redevelopment Agency and the City Council? Looking around, seeing none, I will entertain a motion for the joint special meeting to be adjourned.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And We are done with that and back to council. That brings us to citizen participation agenda. Mike Scudero, Executive Director of Coastal Florida PBA. There he is.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. It is great to see all of you, even under circumstances that I know have been a little challenging this year. This has not been an easy year to budget with the shortfalls that are out there, the state level, local levels. It also happens to be a year in which the contract for your police department bargaining unit was up for renewal. We've all seen and heard from a lot of folks in the community in the recent weeks. And I actually want to start by thanking each of you, because where we were a month or 6 weeks ago is a far cry from where we are today. And that would not have been possible without the willingness from each of you to look into your city finances, look and direct your staff to come to the table and work with us. And that has happened. And I appreciate the city manager and his staff for coming in good faith to work with us on what, again, has been a difficult year. At the same time, while I'm not here to publicly negotiate or attempt to outside of a noticed bargaining session, I can say truthfully that there's still more work to do. We're close, but we're not quite there. And what I do want to do is sort of just remind everybody why this is so important. Many of you come from backgrounds in public safety. Many of you have been up here for a number of years and seen and worked with your department. This department has a tradition as being one of the finest in the community, probably the entire state. And I represent a number of departments. I speak on behalf of about 18 different agencies in 7 different counties. And I can tell you that this one here needs your help. And that's why we're here. When you have vacancies that cannot be filled, it demands attention. Vacancies that have led to changes in services that the department provides. A first-class city expects first-class police, and you've always had that. Now we're reaching a critical point where retention is declining, recruitment is severely declining, and to be fair, it's not just here. Recruitment's down everywhere. You would think with 10% unemployment and an economy that's been shaky at best, that you'd actually see more people looking to do these jobs. Well, guess what? It's not really happening. And there's a national culture at play that has caused that. There just aren't as many people wanting to go into that academy and put that uniform on that there used to be. And when you've got right down the road, you can go work at Super Target for $15 an hour now. So the $18 an hour that you currently pay to starting police officers, which I know is in the process of going up. I don't think any of us expect that that's going to be the case here come October. But just so you know, that's what you're paying $3 an hour more than someone who gets to go work at Target, go home, doesn't have to assume the risks and liabilities that a police officer assumes. Doesn't have to take the mental stress of that home every night. With all due respect to everyone that works at Target, I think we all know in this room that the job these folks do is more demanding. And when that's the case, the compensation has to be consistent with those demands. Now, what you also have is a competition issue within this county. You have a sheriff and neighboring departments that have had substantial pay raises in the last couple of years and have sort of forced the discussion, because that's where you've lost folks to. Daytona Beach, the sheriff's office, and even outside of the profession altogether, people that have chosen to move into a different direction. Obviously, I don't think any of you want to see that. There's a cost to recruitment, there's a cost to training, and when those folks leave and walk out of the door with that experience, that's bad for everybody involved. The citizens, for you guys, for the staff that has to try to put together a budget to maintain a police department. We, on behalf of your officers and sergeants bargaining unit, appreciate what you're doing to try to fix this problem. I hope we can without getting too cliches, let's get it over that finish line. We're close. We need a little bit more to get this done, I believe, and we can pass a contract that will work for everybody involved. But I just want to, again, this is about competition. And right now, Port Orange is losing that competition. Hopefully that's in the process of changing by some of the developments that have occurred in the last month or so. And I think long term, 1, 2, 3 years out, which is how long a contract can go by state law, if we can have a big picture view on this and make it clear that Port Orange is going to be competitive, Port Orange is not going to continue to hemorrhage officers to neighboring agencies. If that's the priority and that's a goal, we'll get there. I haven't been here very much. Mayor, you've been here a while. A couple of council members have been here a long time too. You don't see me darken your doorstep very often. It's not like we cry wolf. We don't come in every year and beg for money and plead poverty and present these dire circumstances. And I'm not saying it's dire right now, but if we didn't do what we've been doing, and if we couldn't get this across the finish line, I do think we would see dire circumstances. We've already had one specialty unit disbanded. That specialty unit provides a very critical service. That is where they find the hot spots for crime in your city and they target it. And that unit has had to go to patrol because you have unfilled vacancies. And of course, we all know first response is the most important part of any police office, of any police department. So there's rumors about what's next, and I hope we don't get there, because if we can fill some of these spots, that problem can be alleviated virtually overnight. As soon as hiring increases, that problem's solved. So I'm not here to beat a dead horse. I am happy to take questions if any of you would like. If Mayor, if that's appropriate, that's up
I
to you.
don't think, actually, there's a lot of things I think we'd all like to say, but I don't think it would be appropriate because we are in negotiations right now. And I'll take your call offline all day long and we can talk individually. But us up here in the sunshine, collectively, while we're still under, it could be seen as negotiating publicly, and we've given a lot of leverage to our negotiating team to get things done. So I want to make sure that our faith is in them to take care of you guys, and I think, and because of that, we're not going to do Q&A with you. But I
Perfectly reasonable.
Individually, we can talk to you offline all day long, but.
I understand, Mayor, and I certainly don't want to disrespect that.
Nope,
I understand
absolutely, and
completely.
I just want to make sure that we're using good judgment to do what you're asking to get you across the finish line.
Absolutely. And with that, Mayor, I'll yield back the balance of my time to, I know you've got a busy meeting ahead of you. Thank you very much.
Nice job with post-game yesterday.
Oh, that was quick. 1 hour and we were done.
Yeah, you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
Council, I have 11 requests to speak, and we have a few to be read into the record. We have 20 minutes to get those 11 requests done unless you want to extend that amount of time at all. Otherwise, it's about 1.5 minutes per person.
Let them be read.
Well, don't they all get 3
I'll extend it if we
minutes?
need to.
Here's what I would recommend. I would recommend that we extend 10 minutes past our normal time.
I move to extend time. I'm
Second.
willing to listen to
Yeah,
everybody.
I'm okay to listen to 'em.
Extend time, how much is 10 minutes, okay?
As long as it needs.
That'll be 30.
I don't want to leave it open, but
I'll extend to 10, and if need be, I'll make another motion.
very good.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. With that, public participation, Jen Card.
I'll come up later. We'll save you some time.
Calling you now. Margie
10
Paget.
times 3 is 30 minutes.
how it goes.
3 minutes.
3
Yes.
minutes. Good evening, everybody,
Hey,
and
Margie.
congratulations, Mayor, on your re-election yesterday. I want to say that I firmly believe that the role of government is to protect and to serve and to provide infrastructure. Ladies and gentlemen, we are living in unprecedented times right now with the COVID virus, high, extremely high unemployment. I think I heard Mike say 10% unemployment. I'm not really sure what it is right now. And it's unprecedented times. And y'all know I'm in the real estate industry. I'm a title agent. I do the real estate closings. Now, it's my understanding that you guys voted for the note, and the notice of proposed taxes just went out. You know, taxes is my game. Okay, to increase our taxes over 10%, I think 10.76%. Now, I realize that's a proposed tax, and that you can always go below. You can stay at that or go below that. However, we have high amount of evictions, foreclosures that haven't been able to start, nor the evictions. Wait, folks, until those get to start, okay? It's unprecedented times. We're looking for people. Real estate is busy. Real estate will pull us out of the Great Depression that we are in because we're busy. I put an ad, not in the newspaper because nobody reads that anymore, but when we put it on the internet, okay, we had over 90 applications here, you guys. That shows how much people are hurting here. It really, really does. I do not want to see the taxes go that high. I firmly believe that y'all need to instruct staff to sharpen their pencils and to go back. If you have 15 positions that are budgeted for but not filled in the police department, and you don't know if they will be filled, why can't you use that money to give these gentlemen and ladies raises in the police department? I understand you're under union negotiations. It's very difficult for you. It puts you all in very precarious positions. But I would urge you, we will be back in September when you do the final vote. But between now and then, I would urge you to instruct staff to sharpen the pencils. Let's find where we can cut other areas of government that aren't as essential as the police and fire, and to provide infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Margie Padgett, I'm sorry. That was Margie Padgett. Debbie Callahan.
Debbie Callahan, 763 Kenilwood Drive, Port Orange, Florida. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for this opportunity to speak. I'm going to kind of sound like Margie Padgett because we hang out together a lot. On July 14th, 2020, City Council held a workshop and discussed keeping our property taxes at rollback rate. Kudos to you. On July 28th, 2020, City Council at your meeting discussed a tax increase. Motion which was made by Drew Bastine to raise to 4.6989, which is 10.76 above rollback rate. Is this a tactic that when you come to an agreement and set the millage rate, you can say, at least we did not raise the taxes to the proposed rate? We have citizens right here in Port Orange who are concerned with eviction, as many of them haven't been able to pay their rent, which has caused a hardship on the property owner whose mortgage still is due every month. And now you want to raise that property owner's property taxes, who legally can't even evict the tenant. Look at the storefronts that are closed. The owners of those commercial properties still must pay their mortgages and taxes, and you want to raise them with no income coming in from their properties. It makes no sense to burden the private property and business owners with any tax increase to add to the already devastating situation with an unknown foreseeable situation and future. As this year is a total balancing act, there are so many who are suffering in our community. The Callahans are praying to help for our community in this new world that we are living in due to COVID-19. Citizens have lost so much already. People are at their worst place with this virus. Some have lost everything, including family members and their own lives to this virus. Please consider this due to this horrific year that COVID-19 virus caused for all citizens and businesses, from loss of income, the price of food increasing, to homeschooling your children. Citizens who have to choose whether to feed their children or pay the Port Orange water bill. The Callahans are in favor of our police force, and we understand they deserve a raise. But let's do the right thing. What is the right thing? Only you 5 people that sit in front of the citizens can decide that. I am urging you to reject any proposal or measure to raise our local property taxes as the city next to us has decided to do the city of Daytona Beach. All of you, as I have heard the mayor say more than once, you need to go back and sharpen your pencils. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak.
Martha Gonzalez. Hello.
Yes, I've been in Port Orange for 16 years.
Just say your name into the
Okay,
microphone
my
for the
name-
record, please.
And what else?
Just say your name
My
for the
name
record.
is Marta Gonzalez. I'm here to support the police department. I've been here for 16 years. I'm a business owner as well. And I think the police, what made Port Orange so special is the quality of life we have here. And the police have played a big role in this. We really appreciate the job they do every day for us. And I think it's very important to support them and to offer and give them a stimulation, stimulus, and help them to, to stay and to attract new people for the police department. So I just want to say that I love the city and I think we deserve the best. That's it. Thank you.
Lauren Merrick. Lauren Merrick?
Oh, sorry, I didn't
It's okay. Come on up.
Lauren Merrick. Oops, sorry. My name is Lauren Merrick. My husband is a former police officer, Justin Merrick, for Port Orange PD, and left in February of this year. He's also been employed with the National Guard for 11 years. In effort to remain working locally in the community we live and raise our children in, Justin refused multiple job offers over the past couple of years. But due to the rising cost of living, combined with the Port Orange PD being one of the lowest paid agencies in the county, when the opportunity was presented again for a full-time position in Jacksonville, the instant wage increase, even with the 90-minute commute each way, made the offer impossible to pass up. In addition, the Port Orange future wage increase structure isn't compatible with future cost of living increases, making the decision to leave even easier. During my husband's service with POPD, more often than not, his patrol shifts were at or below minimum staffing. This led to longer shifts and less available opportunity to request time off to spend with family. The stress of a law enforcement career is already high, but adding on the stress of limited family time coupled with financial hardship is a recipe for disaster for our officers. Due to the hard work and dedication of the Port Orange police officers, this community is well known for its safety and zero tolerance on violence. This attracts residents who wish to raise families here and enjoy excellent schools. It is ridiculous that the men and women who serve our community daily can't afford to benefit and live in the community they work so hard to preserve. If you want to keep and attract professional police officers who will maintain Port Orange's premier community standards, then we should pay premier competitive wages. Thank you.
She even brought help with her.
Oh, yeah.
Lori Friend?
That's solid backup.
Hey everybody. My name's Lori Friend. I'm here specifically about the raise for the police officers, and the reason I'm here is totally different than why everybody else is here. As most of you know, my son was killed 11 months ago in the city of Port Orange, and his case was handled horribly. Everything went wrong. Policies, procedures were not handled, and since some have been changed. When paperwork was turned in, it was lost in different departments, which made a citation not be found for over 3 months. When complaints were filed, they didn't get to where they needed to go. I have a problem with giving people a raise that aren't doing their job correctly right now in certain areas. And this is based on my case and what I went through and what my family continues to go through dealing with the Port Orange Police Department. I support the police, don't get me wrong, and I support them receiving more money. However, I think that before the city of Port Orange receives more money, the people that are in the city of Port Orange need to be retrained, as Judge Field suggested, in open court, and they need to know exactly what they're doing. People are coming in, you're going to bring new people in to what, train them incorrectly? I have a problem with that. There's 15 out. They're going to come in and be trained by all the ones that messed up my son's case. And guess what? All the supervisors signed off on those officers doing it wrong. I have a big problem with that. You're only as good as your leaders. All the leaders signed off on everything that was done wrong. Since then, they've changed policies and procedures on these things that they signed off on and said was okay. For my family, it's not okay. It's not okay to half-ass do your job. And only when someone brings it to your attention and does not go away, then they decide to change things. I think things need to be changed within the police department now. They need to be retrained in certain areas. They definitely need to not laugh at a crime scene. There's a lot of things they need to be retrained. This man, the man that spoke earlier, he said that he agrees that the city needs more help, that it needs help. Yeah, it does. But it needs a help that we're not talking about today, that most people don't want to talk about, but I'm talking about. I don't want any other family to go through what my family went through with this police department repeatedly. I would like to see people trained and the supervisors as well. Everything gets pushed off on the little guy that he did it. No, guess what? The supervisors signed off on everything that was wrong. I would just like to have more money put into training. That way when the officers come, they're trained correctly.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Somebody with worse handwriting than me. I believe it's Richard Chesser?
Yeah, it's worse than yours, Don.
Okay.
It's worse than yours.
Come on up.
Just will say hi to everyone that knows me and the ones that don't. I'm Rick Chesser, live at 4650 Golden Apple Trail. Been living in Port Orange for, I don't know, give or take 20 years, maybe a little bit longer. I am here to support the police department, but I am here also like to support the lady who just spoke. We have a problem here, all right? I've been doing management for 17 years, or excuse me, since I was 17. 56 years old right now. Okay? What's the number one reason employees leave a business? Does anybody know? Can anybody tell me here? Am I allowed to do that?
Poor leadership.
No. It's management.
Or management.
It's management. I've went to ultimate classes, multiple classes. I have some current sayings that I could, actually share with y'all, but y'all sitting here should know this. Okay? This didn't just start happening. It happened when we were the third highest paying our law enforcement. So why were we having turnover then? Why do we still have turnover now? I run a business. Turnover kills me. Kills me. Cost me twice as much that year for that one employee. Okay? And like she said, if the supervisors don't know, the employees don't know. There's no way. But I can tell you, at the money that you're paying them, you're not going to get good employees. People can make a lot more money, have almost as good of benefits working for me. I know they can make more money. But the problem is, we're overlooking that. It's been overlooked last year, the year before, 10 years ago, 17 years ago, 20 years ago. What happened? People that have been sitting here long, what happened? I'm upset about it. I'm more upset when I listen to this lady's story. But I have a son-in-law that's a sheriff. And I can tell you he would not take a position at Port Orange. He's only been a sheriff for about 6 years. You know why? Pay. You know why else? From the rumors he heard through the law enforcement people of how it's managed. And I don't even know the manager. I don't know the supervisor. I don't know the lieutenant. I don't know the captain. I don't know anybody, which really don't matter. But when you hear through the grapevine, what do you hear? You hear honesty. Okay? I come from a little town, had a one-man police officer. That police officer stayed there for 44 years, was police captain. He was the most corrupt person there is. That town is the most corrupt person there is. It's being fixed now. Second city I lived in was Waldo. Anybody know Waldo?
Yep.
Speed traffic capital of the world. It's been changed. It was outlawed there. Okay, so I've seen it. I lived in Sanford, Florida. I've seen it there. I went to New Smyrna. They have some things that are not right. But you know, we're in the 21st century. We need to change this. Give our officers a raise, and by doing that, you need to look within. Thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Rick.
And it looks like William McKenzie.
Good evening, Councilman, Mayor, Councilman. My name's William McKenzie, 634 Herbert Street. Been a Port Orange resident for right around 17 years and a business owner as well for the same amount of time. I came to be in Port Orange because small town feel, great community, security, great police force, and in this 17 years I've seen that go downhill. I'd like to commend the staff for doing the job they do with the resources they have. The department needs more resources. And not only equipment, best equipment in the world does you no good if you don't have quality staff to work with that equipment. The telltale signs that that's not happening is here. You see it everywhere. Indigenous, trodden people on the front steps of the Publix down here, camping out on the corners. It's just not the same place I moved to. I want that to change. I want it to be back to the small town feel that I feel safe in. Now's not the time to consider leaving it as is or reducing the budget or defunding the police. Now's the time to increase their budget, to attract quality officers and personnel to take care of the citizens. That's what they count on all of y'all to do. I don't know about you, but I don't want to see this Port Orange turn into a Holly Hill or Daytona Beach or anything like that. That's not why I came to Port Orange. And with all that, I'd like to say thank you again. God bless us all. God bless the blue. God bless America. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got James Thomas.
You hydrated?
I'm hydrated, but I twisted my knee when doing that work.
Uh-oh.
Thank you. I've been a resident of Port Orange for over 20 years. I've been a police officer in a neighboring city for over 30. Commissioner Stilter and I went to rookie school together when we were young and skinny, and if that tells you how long.
You had to point that out?
If it tells you how long that's how long I've been paying attention to the Port Orange Police Department. I've been watching for years as you give you guys 1% raises, 3% raises, terrible raises. This isn't anything new. You put yourself in this predicament over a period of years. That led to first a compression problem, where you had field training officers teaching new guys, and they were making just mere pennies more than the new guy. That leads to a morale problem, and your experienced officers leave. You tried to fix that, and Scudero can tell you this is probably the first time he and I both spoke on the same side of any topic at a meeting. But you tried to fix that with a step plan, which gave your experienced officers a little more raise than your new officers, but that still left your new officers with a 1% raise over time. That left you in a position where you have the worst starting salary, or one of the worst starting salaries around. That puts you in a bad spot. You're in a spot now where you can fix that by giving the entire police department a raise. The rookies, the guys in the middle, everybody. If you don't do that, and you only address the starting salaries, you're gonna recompress everything. If you don't do that and you give nobody a raise, you're putting yourself in a spot where for another 5 years, you're gonna be having more car breaks at night than anybody else. You're gonna have bad morale. You're gonna have people leaving and going to Jacksonville, Daytona, the Sheriff's Department, everybody else. Because in the past couple of years, Daytona and the Sheriff's Department did okay with the raises. And Scudero will tell you I wasn't happy with what they got. They should have got more, but they did a lot better than you. You guys did horrible. This difference in rollback rate and giving your police officers a raise, for me and my family, is the difference of going out to dinner one night a year. I can tough that up. I can stay home and have hamburger helper one night and be happy to know that my family's safe. I don't want to get to go out to dinner one more night a year and come home and find my house was broken into because you're 33% down on officers and you don't have enough people out there patrolling at night. These guys need raises. They need them now. It's your job to do it. I haven't been to a commission meeting in probably 15, 20 years since Commissioner Stiltner himself was an officer and asking for raises at that point. Your guys saw something I put on Facebook and they said, hey, we appreciate your point of view. Can you come down and speak on our behalf? That's why I'm here. But you guys better fix this or it's going to be a problem and you're going to be the Holly Hill of Volusia County. So that's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Orlando Arleveltis. How bad did I do?
It's been butchered before, don't worry about it.
That's
I'm used to it.
that's what happens when I leave my glasses at home, right?
Hey, my name is Orlando Argulis, 1115 Harms Way, Port Orange. We haven't been living here much. Reason that I'm here is to support, first of all, thank you guys for allowing us the opportunity to be here, Mayor and the whole entire council. And thank you, Port Orange Police Department, for all you guys do. Fine job. Main reason I'm here, I'm just a local resident. I've been living here for 5 years, homeowner for the last 2 years, just right down the street. Reason I'm here, I saw a post, from the Police Benevolent Association in reference to that there were some cuts done, and then I heard again today that there was a unit that was taken down or removed or whatever it was that was patrolling the streets or what it was doing. I didn't catch all that. And then I also heard and started reading up, like, holy smokes, our police department, our guys are getting paid so much. I started getting a little bit more than just concerned. I'll tell you my story why as quickly as I can do this. That thing goes really fast. All right. I come from Tamarack, Florida, down in South Florida, Broward County. I moved to Tamarack. I lived there for almost 15 years because it was a beautiful city. It was a city where a lot of retirees were in there, and then they stopped doing that, so a lot of more people started moving in. Very safe city. About 12, 15 years I lived there. Well, within the last 3 years of me living over there, a lot of changes started happening. A very well-run city. Things were beautiful. It's just like here in Port Orange. Everything was hunky-dory. Changes started happening. The police department started being affected. You just didn't see them out anymore. Crime rose so high that me and my wife said, we got to get out of here. We literally witnessed shooting in the middle of the street in the city. Like, how can this happen here? And sometimes we say, how can this happen here in Port Orange? I really believe it happens when we start letting our guard down. I don't want us to let our guard down. I want us to be ahead of the game. I saw what happened down in South Florida, just in Broward County, Tamarack, right next to a beautiful city of Coral Springs. The surrounding cities, it was just horrible. We needed to get out. Holy smokes. So we got out. We moved over here. Now I see that there's changes are starting to perhaps happen. All this defund the police. Please, listen, do everything possible. My brother-in-law's a police officer. He lost his job. I've seen the stress that goes on to these men and these women's lives because they want to do better for their families. They want to do better for their kids. I've seen the destruction in the family. I've seen it personally. It hurt deep. That family no longer exists as a family unit because the stress that was put upon them just to try to look for more means, for more money to make, just to live a happily better life than they were doing. The family is now destroyed. So I personally I've seen the crime rise, and I've seen the hurt and the destruction that can cause a police family. So I pray and I really hope that you guys are just ahead of the game. Not just give them a raise, be ahead of the game. Evil doesn't cease. It's always looking for an opportunity. Don't allow that to happen. Be prepared for when evil comes. Thank you very much.
Teresa Perez.
Hello, my name is Teresa Perez, and this is the first time I've ever been to any council meeting or anything. I've been in Florida for total, could be 30, my dad moved me here 35 years ago when I was 16. I graduated from Spruce Creek. I moved away. We moved away for a couple years, came back with my ex-husband. We lived here for a few years. Then when we moved away, and back in 2002, I came back here permanently. I have seen the growth that Port Orange has done because Dunlawton used to be nothing when I first moved here. It was all woods, and it's grown up so much. And it is very important that we keep funding our police. They need to be paid. And you're talking now, I knew about the River Park. I didn't know you were building condos. I thought they were supposed to be restaurants and little shops built up. I didn't know you're putting condos there. And now you're wanting more people to come in here? Y'all, we need this. We need the police to support us. We're supposed to be ranked second safest city in the state of Florida. And if we don't have the police to defend us, we are going to be like Daytona and Holly Hill. And I don't want to see that. We need to pay the officers their money, and we need to train them. And, you know, the reason I'm here is that I'm safe. This is the safest city I've ever lived in. Okay, and I've lived in about 4 or 5 different states. And I call this home. And all my family is here. So we need to fund the police, and we need to support them. And I'm sorry for what happened to this lady and her family, because I've never been through that. Yes, I know we've had some crime, but we haven't had the crime that other people, and you're wanting to still build up the city of Port Orange. So we need to have the people to help with the crime. And yes, I have never seen, I lived in Vegas, I lived in California, saw homelessness. Yeah, I saw a little bit of homeless when I first moved here, but I ain't never seen the homelessness now that's all in Port Orange as I've seen since I've been here either, where they're on the corners asking for money all the time. So, you know, that's a little bit concerning too. But I just really, you know, we really need to support our police, and we need to have the money there to pay them, because another thing is too, it's really sad that Volusia County in any job is the lowest paying county in the whole damn state of Florida, excuse my language, but it's pretty sad. It's really, really sad. So that's all I have to say, and we just need to support our police department. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. You want to read the comments, Robin? If you would.
Got 5 of them. First one is Calvert Seabird. I own a small business based in Port Orange and recently became aware that the City Council is considering defunding the Port Orange Police Department. I am very concerned about this and could not disagree more. Defunding the police department seems to be very popular and the trendy thing to do these days. I can't imagine why. The results are speaking for themselves every day. It is obvious to me that in cities right now where the police are absent, crime is flourishing. Watch the news. There are multiple examples of this going on right now across our country. What would happen in Port Orange? Would me, my staff, my customers, and my business be safe in Port Orange? Serious questions that need real answers. It seems to me that defunding the police is a knee-jerk reaction, not one that was the result of serious thought. Am I not loud enough? I've never been told I wasn't loud enough. I strongly disagree with defunding the police. I feel that we should always support our police. If we defund the police, then who do I call if we need help? A city councilman? No, thank you. I've had just about enough of politicians serving their own interests. Thank you for your time, and please reconsider this crazy notion. If anything, during these times, we need more police officers, certainly not less. Diane Evans. Although I am unable to attend in person, I wanted to say that I believe our men and women in the police department for our city deserve competitive pay. We need our police and love them. They are one of the biggest reasons our city is so safe and in the top-rated family cities of our state. I've had many encounters with local PD while working at City Hall. They are such amazing people. If we pay fair other job positions, we should all the more pay our police. I just copied and pasted. Pay our police and fire departments more than enough as they risk their lives to keep us safe. We need to offer great pay so Port Orange keeps and receives more of the finest police. I hate that we are losing them due to not being paid competitively. These jobs are necessary, these jobs are needed, these jobs are tough. Let's give them what they deserve and keep our Port Orange Police Department filled and represented with the cream of the crop. Please share this on my behalf at the meeting. Thank you. Dr. Kane. Polmy Kane. Good evening to all. I would like to express my concern about our loss of police officers to other municipalities.
and the increasing risk that more will leave for better pay and benefits elsewhere. My family moved to Port Orange from Chicago in 2015 because of the amazingly low crime rate. We invested in a 2,800 square foot home and we're very happy. As of the last 2 years, however, we have witnessed an increase in crime trickling in from surrounding areas, as well as the general increase due to recent unrest and financial despair brought on by COVID-19. We are doubtful that we can retain adequate police protection with a shrinking force, as officers are leaving for other towns or leaving public safety altogether. Our entire investment in Port Orange was based on safer living, and now we are beginning to lament that decision. Our public servants have thoroughly outlined what they need in order to stay in our service, and we are very willing to pay for it. Their request is so modest, and we are not only embarrassed that it has been denied in the past, we are scared to death that it will be denied again. I would hope that you are too, especially if you are committed to living here. We, however, will consider how committed we are after this decision is made, and we are not alone. Please work hard to give our protectors the compensation they deserve. Otherwise, you continue to rob them each shift, each hour, each call, which has the potential to also rob them of their lives. Thank you. William Hernandez. Police officers do a unique job to protect the community, among other very important things that are vital to our city, but they also have families to feed. I think we can all agree that their wages today have not kept up with inflation and cost of living. It is why so many officers have left the force to other jobs that pay more money and leaving our city vulnerable. Crime rate has and will continue to increase because of this. It is a vicious cycle that must be broken now by giving our officers a pay increase. Officers put their lives on the line every day on the job, and that effort needs to be appreciated and compensated properly. We need to show we are serious about their commitment to policing by paying police officers fairly for the uniquely challenging job they do. Let's keep our city safe. Do the right thing. Last one. Cheryl Shaw. Our family moved to Florida in 1998 from Pennsylvania. We spent several months researching the Volusia County area before deciding to purchase a home in Port Orange. We selected Port Orange for 3 primary reasons: the uniqueness and beauty of the city, the schools, and the police presence. I have interacted with our police force both personally and professionally over the last 21 years and have always found them to be extremely helpful, caring, and professional. It is beyond disturbing to find out our police department is down 17 officers, largely due to our low starting salary. I am quite proud to be a resident of Port Orange. However, I find myself extremely disappointed at this time. These men and women are working in a crucial role necessary to maintain our safe city. They deserve to be compensated with a fair and competitive wage for doing so. It is embarrassing to me that our median income is between $16,500 and $18,500 higher than cities who pay their officers $1,100 to $2,800 more per year. We're lucky to have low crime rates. However, we won't continue to be so lucky if we don't make a change. I've heard 2 main arguments against increasing their salaries: training and taxes. Here's the issue with training. You can increase the amount of training provided, but it will not change the end result. The officers will still leave for better pay. Only now we'll be offering an even better trained officer to a police department willing to compensate them for what they're worth. If we continue to have high rates of turnover and or just vacant positions within our PD, our city is going to suffer. With regards to the tax argument, I'm ashamed to drive around and see signs for no tax increase, quote unquote. Port Orange has one of the lowest millage rates across the entire county. Yes, times are difficult for some right now. The proposed increase on my home, valued at $213,000, is $37. This is $3.09 per month. Give up 1 coffee or beer and you've covered that amount. In order to recruit and, more importantly, retain quality officers, which our city and its residents are quite deserving of, we need to offer a fair and competitive wage. I hope the mayor and council can agree. We need this in order to protect our great city. I fully support a tax increase to take care of our officers who are taking care of us. Thank you.
You want some water?
I got some.
I just wanted to say, I know some of you who spoke today have never done this before, and I know it can be a little intimidating. Some of you have, and that's okay too. But I appreciate all of you for coming up and sharing, even when it was a little bit scary to do so. So we're here, you can come see us anytime. I also want to thank my council for extending the amount of time we allot for citizen participation so that we can accompany that. With that, council comments, Chase?
Yeah. I'll second the mayor's comment and the appreciation of everyone coming up. Especially a lot of the new folks that came up. Public speaking is said to be the scariest thing and people's greatest fear even before dying. So as Jerry Seinfeld even said, people are be more comfortable in the casket than they are giving the eulogy. So my hat's off to you, those who did come before tonight. And easiest thing for me, many of you guys already know my position and it hasn't changed. The easiest thing for me to do is to say no comment. But because of what you do, you deserve to hear from me. I'm willing to man up and look you in the eye and tell you where my position is and why it is. So bear with me, because it's not something that just comments are coming off the head. These are, I'm a man of faith. I pray about every decision I make, and I consult with people. Anytime big decisions come before. So I know Mr. Scudero very well. I consider him a good friend, and I consider many of our officers friends of mine, and some of which I grew up with on these various streets. I don't believe that there's a person in here tonight that does not support backing the blue. I'm going to go a step further and say this from the dais, that as a student and teacher of American history, that this radical leftist mission to defund the police that is permeating our cities across the country ranks among the most despicable movements in our country's history. Without question, I can say that. But I am going to add to this, that to compare an unwillingness to raise taxes to address wages during an economic crisis of this magnitude, to compare that to actually defunding the police, as some have suggested, not everyone, to hijack the phrase for political gain, something that is dangerously occurring throughout the country, is entirely disingenuous, irresponsible, and reckless. The discussion for higher wages, on the other hand, is entirely valid and worthy of the strong efforts that have been given. As it pertains to the wages discussion, I am and always have been an advocate for higher wages for our staff. It's an uncomfortable position to be on the opposite side of our police officers. Not something I've ever experienced before. I'm on the record from this chair saying such. Again, my personal instructions to staff were to find a way to give a raise without raising taxes. But yes, I do recognize the challenges that come with that. I am willing and wanting to give raises to our first responders. I want to do that every year, frankly. But I am not willing to raise taxes to do it this year. I can appreciate the folks here and elsewhere that are asking for taxes to be raised. I respect that position. But just as many of us here tonight that are speaking to that, I speak to the same number of folks on a regular basis, and in many cases begging to not have their taxes raised. Frankly, I've always been of the belief that if you want to pay more taxes, no one is stopping anybody from writing an extra check and sending it to the city. But I will not support forcibly taking more money from people's pockets who have just lost their jobs, in many cases their entire careers and livelihoods, their businesses closed and never reopen again, businesses who have closed and are scratching and clawing to reopen, and families who have taken massive pay cuts, which, by the way, inhibits their ability to provide a certain standard of living that they are accustomed to providing for their families. I do not believe that during our country's greatest economic crisis in 90 years since the Great Depression, that it is appropriate to take even a single penny more from people who have already been devastated by this. That is not to say that you don't deserve a raise, because you absolutely do. I am not unwilling to pay you more for the work that you do, but I am unwilling to take more of it from someone else that has already lost so much. Bear with me, I'm almost done. I am reminded again of the comments made before about 20, 30, 40 bucks not being a lot, indicating that it can just be basically a few lunches or a dinner or a beer or a coffee. And that may be so for some people. But I'll also remind, as I stated before, that $40 is also baby formula. It's a portion of a water bill. It's a portion of an electric bill. It's diapers. It's wipes. It's $30 worth of light bulbs that I had to unexpectedly purchase 3 days ago. It's an extra $25 unprepared dollars on my personal water bill due to a leak that I was just made aware of. So let's not reduce the value of a dollar by just equating it to purchases of pleasure and ignoring the purchases of necessity. Not to mention what this will mean to our local businesses. Some of our businesses have closed, struggled to remain open, or painfully closed and barely reopened in an effort to provide a service for our jobs and residents. And now we're going to hit these people up for hundreds and in some cases thousands of dollars more in a tax increase. To suggest that some council members may be hiding behind COVID and to downplay the severity of the economic crisis as though it's being used as some sort of an excuse is frankly an insult to those who are currently devastated and experiencing real pain and is devoid of any knowledge of American history. There is no end in sight at this point. The only thing we have going for us right now is that the housing market is still strong and our homes have not only not lost but have increased in value, which determines the great portion of our tax revenues as a city. And who knows what can transpire in the coming months. Deferments are coming due. A lot of people had their mortgages deferred, not forgiven, and not pushed back at the end of the loan. Those are coming due. All the more reason to tread lightly as possible. And I'll close my comments by reminding our residents and all of you here tonight that in spite of my personal position here, I do support our men and women in blue. Next to our military, you are the heroes of this country, as far as I'm concerned. It's disgraceful and to see the treatment that you receive from some of the radicals inside our borders. I've stood on the street corners in support. I've lobbied for you at the bargaining tables, and I support you without equivocation. And I will acknowledge publicly that our police are woefully underpaid, and I do believe that we must, and I am committed to addressing the issue. I am not unwilling to give raises, but I am unwilling to take more from people who have already lost so much. At a time like this, when so many of my friends, family, and neighbors have lost their jobs and don't know where their next paycheck is coming from, I cannot look them in the eye and justify a higher tax bill for them. I will not do it. And that may not be what you want to hear from me, but at the very least, it's my honest response, and you deserve to know where my position is. And it's anything but easy for me to sit up here and look you in the eye and say no. But one thing you'll never have to guess is where I stand on an issue. I'll never tell you one thing and do another. With that, I'll turn it over to the mayor. I appreciate your patience and bearing with me.
You got anything else? Okay. Drew?
No, I don't have anything. I'm not following that. That was, I'm good for tonight. I made my position clear in the past.
Yes, you have. Marilyn?
Sure. Tonight's gathering outside City Hall was to demonstrate support for police and other first responders, primarily the police. I really support that. However, I am fully aware, and I actually got a number of calls from citizens that a lot of it was organized with the words defunding the police, as if council wanted to do that. Words matter. To be clear, defunding the police as it is used in the nation and ballyhooed by the media today means one of two things. Get rid of police altogether, or diminish their numbers and substitute social workers, psychologists, somebody else to answer calls. Let me be very clear. I and the rest of my colleagues have never discussed defunding Port Orange Police. We have never said you should go away. We have never contemplated it. This discussion is about pay. One thing. There are union negotiations going on, and it's to get more pay for the police. It's something that all of us recognize. I can't comment on pay because there are certainly negotiations underway. I can tell you that the pay proposals ultimately affect the city's tax rate. So the other thing I have to balance, and that I believe and I pledged when I ran for city council, is that I would look out for every single resident. We've heard today people will pay another 30 bucks, another 20. We have people like that in our community, that it's an extra dinner out. But as Councilman Tremont just said, it's part of a utility bill, it's part of a water bill, it's part of groceries. Heck, it may be the only $20 they have for a Christmas present, a birthday party for their kid, or a night out. And at the end of the day, making a decision to control the tax rate and costs doesn't diminish the value of police or other first responders. This is not a zero-sum game with one winner and one loser. We still can see your value. We still believe in you. But I have the duty to look at tax rates that aren't a one-time occurrence. Whatever decision we have will go on forever. And every resident is going to keep paying every year. Words matter. Here are my words. I support police. Heck, I'm a former certified corrections officer and my husband was in law enforcement. I've made a career out of it. I've sat in the same place you have as line people and as the chief, having to make tough decisions. But I also am here to support and think about every single resident in this city. And when I make decisions, I try and use that big picture. Public comments, emails, street theater, harangues. Please stop bullying me.
Any other? No. Just that one. Scott?
Thank you. I just want to echo, first of all, the mayor's comments about those of you that come and speak at the dais and speak before the council. I agree that public speaking is not something that's very comfortable for a lot of people. So for those that are willing to do that and those that send emails, those are greatly appreciated and always well received by us. Also, I want to say that I truly appreciate the outpouring of support for the police department and all of our police officers. It's not only a difficult time for a lot of people in the community, but for them as well. And I hope that that will always be the case and that support will be there. I think it is. I think Port Orange as a whole has always been a community that supports their officers, their public safety folks extremely well. A lot of great points and perspectives were talked about tonight. Mike, I'm glad you didn't leave, but for a side note for you, when we can talk about things after negotiations are settled, I've got some comments for you as well, so good to see you tonight. Thanks for coming out. One of the comments that I wanted to talk about was the defunding rumor that got launched into the community. I think that's been well covered. This council has never, ever had a discussion about defunding this police department. Can we have discussions about increasing funding, increasing staffing, increasing wages, increasing abilities? That absolutely all day long we can do that. But for whoever or any organization to take that out of context like that, I think damages the reputation of this police department, and that's unfair for men and women that serve in a community that respects them so well. So I would ask, please, if you hear of people doing that, ask them to stop. That's unwarranted. That's completely unjustified. Do our police officers deserve pay raises? Hell yeah. No doubt. Right? Law enforcement has enough challenges in this country. We do not need to create other issues for them to have to deal with. It is irresponsible, it is unprofessional, it is unethical. That needs to stop. A lot of folks stood up here tonight and other nights and will stand other nights to come to support the men and women of our public safety departments, as they should. That is fabulous. And this council will spend hours and hours and hours going through our budget, trying to figure out how to get to where we need to go in an incredibly unprecedented time. It's not about us not wanting to get there. And if anybody thinks that, they're not paying attention. We're trying to get there, like Mike said. Hopefully we're getting close. Hopefully we can figure out how to get there. You know, one of the hesitations, not hesitation, but one of the things that rests in our minds is that we see our community that, and then somebody spoke about real estate tonight. Look, let's talk about that for just a brief second. There's a lot that goes into that, to make that. To go into the budget we have now and start cutting services unrelated to law enforcement or public safety, I don't like that. I just think that that's a lot. And by the way, for stuff like we're trying to get done here, we're not talking about let's go find $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 where you can hold off on this or hold off on that. We're talking about commitments that will compound year after year after year after year. And so finding dollars like that by cutting services in the department or in the city as a whole, none of us want to see that. Nobody wants to see that. We don't want to see a budget that looks like we're talking. Well, let's don't even go there. We're just talking a lot. So my point is that it's challenging. If somebody is opposed to giving our police officers and our public safety raises and trying to get ourselves in a better position to attract more people and retain more people, and they want to come to me and show me where you're going to cut elsewhere in the budget to find that massive kind of cutting, I'm all ears. I will meet with you, we will sit down, we will break out the books. Because I don't think people really truly realize and appreciate the magnitude of those kind of dollars. So I would love to speak to more about some of the stuff that we're trying to get done with negotiations and things like that, but as the mayor and Mike Scudero pointed out, we're a little bit in an area there we have to be very cautious and careful of. And I just want to leave it with this is, again, thank you very much for those that come and speak and support our men and women and our public safety. And we are gonna, I do believe that this council will continue to try to move in the right direction on this. I guess I'll just leave it at that for now.
Well, all four of you are really leaving me with very little to say because you've all covered a lot of ground, except to say that there was an election yesterday. And the voters of Port Orange decided, and I am grateful for the fact that I will be here another 4 years. And the reason why I say that is I'm going to be here to work on this problem. And I've worked awfully hard on this and a whole bunch of other things the last 4 years. I'm going to work twice as hard because these next 4 years is it for me. I'm going to milk this experience for everything I can for this community. And this is one of those things I'm going to be working on. And I just want to say thank you very much to the voters of Port Orange for showing your confidence in me for what we've done the last 4 years. And I will give it every bit that I have the next 4 years. With that, I believe it probably appropriate to call a 5-minute recess since we've been sitting here in these chairs about 2 hours. And that'll give everybody a chance to exit if they so wish. But if you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, we'll be here. Stand. Set timer for 6 minutes.
forget what kind
And we're back.
Oh my gosh. But
Thanks,
I think they have
appreciate
a lot
it.
of problems because they're so little.
Opening the public hearing portion of the meeting. As everybody scurries back to their seats.
There we go.
Second reading of ordinance number 2020-21. No, I did. Oh, wait a second. No, we're not to the public hearing portion of the meeting because I skipped 100 things. Special awards, reports, recognition, proclamations, reports from the Port Arthur South Lieutenant Chamber of Commerce. Hey.
Why are you guys here? And Bob
Hey.
Appreciate you being ready
You
to
got-
go, even though
I'll
I tried
talk
to save you.
really slow for you today. Thank you, guys. I want to thank you for continuing the chamber contract. You know, the services that the chamber and the city provide together is really important, especially this year. It has just been insurmountable the amount of help that the city and the chamber has provided to businesses in such tough times. I want to thank you for the media posters that you provided that have been distributed at the chamber for the Back Up, Mask Up campaign. That's been really important to keep our businesses open, you know, to keep consumer confidence going so that consumers will actually visit these businesses and keep our workforce safe so that they can go home, feel okay about going home to their elderly parents or grandparents or their young kids. So I want to thank you for continuing to work with the chamber, and I know that Debbie has many more things to report to you guys today.
Thank you. Debbie Connors, President of the Port Orange South Lieutenant Chamber.
I never said my name. I'm Jennifer Card. I'm the chamber chair. Thank you, guys.
Chairman of the board. Thank you, Jennifer. It's our pleasure to be with you tonight, and Mayor, congratulations, and we look forward to your leadership for a few more years. And council people, thank you so much for all you do for our city. It's a pleasure to be partners with you and work with you. We meet with Jake Johansson and Don every month, and the rest of you, I try to talk to you as often as I can about issues that are going on. The chamber is doing very well. We've got 640 members right now, and we have a wonderful membership development director, Neil McGinnis, who's bringing in about 10 members a month right now. Now, he had a April and May that was like 2 members in April and 2 members in May. It was getting a little discouraged, but it was really tough to see businesses, you know, when they were struggling along. But he is doing a great job. He's brought in 70, I think just under 75 new businesses this year to the chamber. And, you know, with all small businesses, you know, retention is a constant effort. Your chamber staff has spent so many hours calling our members and letting them know about resources that are available during this time with the PPP and the county grant, all of the programs that are available to them. We've got it on our website. We put it on our Facebook page. We try to get that information out there for the businesses. The chamber financially is strong, thank goodness. We've prepared for this kind of year with a strong reserve account, so we have about 6 months of operating reserves that we can work with. We also have a building fund that prepares us for the future. And so as much as we love the Riverside Pavilion, our lease with you, we know at one day will end, and I won't probably be around anymore, but you know, we're being prepared and trying to be wise with our dollars. Our businesses, this year has been extremely challenging, trying to find new ways to do things, but thank goodness for Zoom. We're having a lot of meetings. We are doing, the chamber staff has worked at the chamber all during this time because we've just had so much more to try to reach out to the businesses and contact them and see what we could do to help, if there was anything that could be done to help. We're working very closely with the Chamber Alliance to do the PPE distribution from the funds from the CARES Act that went to the county. They were able to buy a lot of the...
You got another round of that coming up, don't you?
Yes, we have another round. So next Monday we'll be assembling kits, and Tuesday we'll be distributing. This time, because the mere volume of kits that we were doing, transporting them to our locations was very, very difficult. Since all of the material is at the Ocean Center, we're going to do the distribution from the Ocean Center for the east side and pay for a truck to get all those things to the west side, and they're doing a distribution in southeast Volusia at the request of the county. So we will be doing that next week and hopefully help several more businesses that are looking for those important supplies that are very difficult to get right now. I tried to summarize a lot of our activities this year. We're able to start off the year back when it was normal with our mayor's breakfast. That was a bit of a different format than we've done in the past, but our mayors did a great job of reporting to us and our members, and we were able to recognize the first responders as we always do at that event, and it continues to be a very, very strong, popular event. We did this week a Zoom meeting with Mr. Johansson and Les Gillis in South Daytona to let them talk about the budget. So yesterday morning was Jake talking about the budget of Port Orange, and this morning Les, and we have recorded those, and as soon as we can get them all processed and edited a little bit, there'll be links on our website and in our materials so that businesses can access that. But it was a great explanation
And
of
for
what they'll
council
look
to
at.
see what their city manager's saying when we're not looking.
Yes, absolutely. We've already had a few requests for those recordings. With that,
Well, I wasn't the only one that called?
no, you're not the only one. And we were able to get a business expo in this year, early in the year, and we did have several businesses that exhibited. We were standing by and trying to help Port Orange Family Days do their event with their expos, but unfortunately that just didn't happen this year, as we weren't able to do Riverfest either, or a Tasteful Affair. Fortunately, we were able to get a golf tournament in on August 1st, and it was very successful, and I think we were able to do it very safely. So that was a great boost to the chamber, and we look forward to getting a little bit of funding from the PPE distribution from the County CARES Act for helping with that process. So financially, we're doing okay. A lot of our businesses are doing pretty well in Port Orange. There are a few that are not surviving, but we're doing everything we can to help them, and I don't think that any staff would work harder than we have to try to be with them and help them all that we can. So we appreciate your partnership and look forward to continuing that. I am always open to any of your comments or suggestions on what the chamber can do to better help the business community, and we stand here to work with you. Thank you.
Questions?
Quick comment. I enjoy watching the two of you guys put on a great show.
Like a road show.
Thank you for all you guys do. And thanks to the city providing us those signs with I Keep It Local. I've been sporting that in my yard for quite some time. I've gained a lot of weight because I've eaten a lot more from our local restaurants. But thanks for all that you guys do. Your position right now is critical during this time. Thank you.
Just a couple quick comments and maybe a request. So obviously challenging times we're in right now. A lot of residents have a lot of concerns and a lot of issues. I just want to say that we are not lost in the fact that some of the business owners have those same things and are dealing with it. I will say that, as you would always imagine in our area, the businesses will still find a way to rise to the top. I was recently in another part of the state, and I can tell you it didn't look anything like what we see around here. So it does make me feel good about that. And if you find that there are businesses that are struggling, if there's things that in the community we can do to help, please bring that to our attention so we can try to help promote those businesses, because I'm thankful that it's not the massive amount that we all feared could it be, but we can make that and say, okay, well, maybe it's not as many, which maybe that makes it easier for us to try to help out the ones that we want to help out. So whatever we can do to that. Interestingly enough, timing is always a cool thing, and lately I've had a lot of contact with business owners, just general questions. Hey, what's going on, this and that. Probably this week alone, I've had 3 different business owners asking me what's going on out there on Dunlawton in the medians. Yeah. If you guys can maybe get some talking points from if you need them, from Jake or community development, and share those about that project. But just in a nutshell, it's basically a 6-year project finally coming to fruition. It's not just for residents, it's for our business owners too. It's been a long time coming. I think it's going to be beautiful. I hope that the business owners, especially through the Dunlawton corridor, but folks that are branch
keep
off
the weather
those,
from knocking down.
yeah, right. But if you could,
stake them
if you
out
guys
today.
could just touch on that, communicate that, and say, hey, some of you are starting to ask about what is this project, how big is it going to be, how long is it going? It's going from 95 to Spruce Creek Road, so forth and so on. If you guys can share that with them, I would be appreciative of that. I think a lot of them are interested to know. They want to be able to talk about that, and Jake's team and staff can certainly get you guys any talking points you might need. But I think it's going to really end up being a really nice, visible feature to our community, right through the heart of the community. And I think businesses are going to appreciate it as much as the residents are. So if you guys can find a way to communicate that, let them know a little bit about what's going on, maybe the project timeline and stuff like that. So I would appreciate that.
Be happy to.
Thank you. That's all I got.
Drew, you got anything?
No, I always appreciate the presentation. I'm obviously
Don't you like
disappointed.
how
We
he
had
always
the
says no, and
Mistasteful
then
Fair, and maybe things will look up, and maybe we can do 2 of those next year. Like make it maybe do 2 of them. I don't know.
That'd be
Hopefully.
awesome.
We got to do at least
Our
one.
restaurants can get strong again.
Yes.
We'll give them a little time.
Exactly.
Chase, do you have anything else? No. Marilyn?
No.
Sure you don't want a 50-year lease?
A what?
A 50-year lease?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I had a feeling you'd get a reaction.
We can't hear the man behind the curtain.
I was going to stop her when she said, I'll probably not be here for that. I said, are you leaving before the end of the year? But
No.
Thank you both.
Not my plan.
Thank you both. Jim, we kind of talked about this. This was not the year you planned it or thought it would be. And like so many of us in different roles, this year has not been or what is we thought it would be, but has created a unique opportunity for you to step up and support our business community like none other. When our business community is hurting, we're hurting, and those are our jobs. Those are the services that are provided for our citizens, and because of this, you've had a very unique and beautiful year in so many different ways.
I agree. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I've had, and you make the best of what you've got given to you. And I feel like the business community has really benefited in a lot of ways for coming together to help each other out. And for that's the beauty in it all.
Yes.
And I know that that's going to continue because I think next year could get tough for some businesses. So let's face it, we really need to, like Scott said, if you're seeing something, say something now so that we can try to jump in and help them. And that's what the Chamber's been doing all along, and I support them. They're amazing, amazing staff people. They never ever stop listening to all the ideas that everyone comes at them with, and so I'm just grateful to work with them, and I'm thankful for what you just said to me. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. I was about to say thanks for not shying away, but you're anything but shy.
Oh, yeah, no. She's on us all the time.
Thank you both.
That's what I do. That's how we roll.
There you go.
Thank you. We have a virtual business after hours tomorrow at 4, so if you're not signed up for
Do
it.
we still have to pay our $5?
No.
Oh.
It's no charge. We're trying to do
But
what
you
we
can.
We bring our own beverage and
There you go.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
Just join us on Zoom.
Thank
See you there.
guys.
Bye, guys. Have a good
I
night.
may have to do that. Sign up.
Board appointments, interviews, reports, Citizens Advisory Board Committee for the TPO.
Bobby Ball.
Mr. Bobby Ball, thanks for staying up late.
All right, thank you. First off, I guess I should congratulate you, Mary. Good to have you back for a few more years. Bobby Ball with the CAC for the TPO. We had our, I don't know if it's the video calls or just the time of year, but summertime is usually pretty short meetings, and the video conference format they're doing seems to go even faster sometimes. At least it seems like the topics aren't very longly discussed like they might normally be. So with that said, we had a quick 5-year TIP update just to reconcile the TPO's plan with the DOT's plan. And then outside that, there was a lot of discussion. Really the focus right now is on the long-range transportation plan. So the Connect 45 is what's coming up soon, and that's what everybody's looking forward to seeing. You can weigh in with survey input if you'd like, and they've also got a separate website to provide updates to that to you if you're interested in where that stands.
You say it was good. So Connect 45, does that carry us through 2045?
Yes.
But we're only at 2020.
Mm-hmm. That's the long-range transportation plan.
Why wouldn't it say Oh, 25 years? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
20 plus.
I was doing the math and thought forget it. It's long. It's late.
It's late. I agree. I haven't had dinner, so I'm ready.
Any questions?
If that's it.
No questions? I guess you can go eat dinner.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I'll wait a
Bobby.
few more
Thank you.
minutes.
See you, Bobby.
Thanks, Bobby. Appreciate you. Now that brings us to the public hearing portion of the meeting, which I tried to jump to much faster a few minutes ago, which brought Penny scurrying into the room faster than she thought she had to be. But second reading of ordinance number 2020-21, an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, annexing approximately plus or minus 18.7 acres of property located at 4507 Bruner Road, along with a portion of the adjacent Wellfield Road and Bruner Road rights-of-way, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2020-21.
Second.
We have a motion, a proper second. The item is open and on the floor for discussion. Second reading. Council comments or questions?
No.
There being none, would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, council, other comments? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. And that brings us to first reading of ordinance number 2020-28, the Land Development Code Amendment, Chapter 9, Article 2, and Chapter 13. This is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code, Chapter 9, Article 2, and Chapter 13, relating to updating requirements for tree protection and preservation and landscaping, requirements, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2020-28.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item's open and on the floor for discussion.
Good evening, Penelope Cruz Planning. The proposed amendment before you does a few things. It clarifies the process for removal of a historic tree. It makes the size requirement for new and replacement trees on single-family and two-family lots consistent. Adds tree abuse regulations. Amends the penalty fees for tree removal without a permit. And removes the landscape materials from the Land Development Code to be adopted if this is approved tonight at second reading in a resolution, which can be more easily updated annually. So the first, wrong way. Second move. There we go. All right, so the new tree abuse regulations include basically defining what tree abuse would be. These regulations only apply to shade trees. It includes cutting a tree in a way that alters the natural shape of the tree, hat racking or topping a tree, or trimming it more than 1/3 of the canopy in 1 year. Due to the stress that tree abuse causes these trees, it increases the chance of that tree becoming hazardous. So because of that, an abused tree would not be permitted to count towards the landscape requirements that are required in the Land Development Code for lot coverage. So if it's found that a tree's been abused, a tree removal permit will be required to remove that tree because that abuse would render it hazardous. And replacement trees may be required if after that tree is removed, it is found that the lot is no longer meeting the requirements of the Land Development Code.
Is this one referring to residential trees on personal property?
Both, yes. Okay. The amendment also amends the penalty fees. Currently, the Land Development Code only includes the ability to apply a penalty up to $5,000 without really any guidance or specification of how to determine that up to, that range. For removal of a historic tree, and it really only focuses on non-residential properties for when you remove a historic tree without a permit. So the amendment revises the penalty to be a flat $5,000 fee for these non-residential properties, and adds a requirement to also pay twice the amount of the regular permit fee if that permit had to have been pulled, along with the required mitigation as well. It also adds a penalty for removal of a historic tree on residential property, and it adds a penalty for removal of any tree 6 inches or above without a permit. Just wanted to give the council kind of foreshadow what might be coming. We may come before you with another future amendment with penalties, to address tree removal without a permit. That also addresses penalties for tree contractors. We're still researching it. It's a little bit more complicated. I know you all have probably been approached at some point in your life with some of those weekend warrior contractors who aren't always licensed, and they come up to your door and they give you a really great deal and it's a take it or leave it situation. So that gets a little tricky because they're not licensed with the city, and so trying to fine tune those penalties for that situation too is a little tricky. So we're still researching that. We did want to continue to move forward with these amendments at this time to not slow this down as recommended by the EAB. And as we continue to kind of fine tune the rest of it, we'll hopefully be able to bring that back to you. So with that, if this amendment is approved tonight, all tree contractors that are registered in the city will be receiving a letter regarding this pending amendment so that they are aware of the change and the potential impact it can have on their clients. Staff, Planning Commission, and the Environmental Advisory Board are recommending approval of these amendments, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
I have one. It occurs to me that the licensed people are responsible. It's the non-licensed.
Not always.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Not always.
It's the non-licensed or the homeowner that may not realize. This goes back to the old, how do they know they need to have a permit for whatever? And we can say it's on our website, but does planning and zoning have any, annually, do you do certain types of notice? I'm thinking other than on a water bill, so we can get the word out this has changed?
Yeah, so we've done public service announcements in the past. We'll also do a similar public service announcement for the public and work with our PIO for that as well. But we wanted to put in writing in a letter to the tree contractors so that they can't say they didn't know. Because we do have issues with our licensed contractors.
If RecMan likes climbing trees, maybe you could use RecMan to let the public know
do a video,
there's new ordinances.
Yeah.
Other questions? Go ahead.
So you're going to notify the tree companies and the people. Are we going to try to do like an education thing? If a homeowner decides to trim a tree and hacks it up or damages it up?
We can do that. I think we've put some stuff out there in the past, and we can work with our PIO to kind of put that out there. But we've put some information, I think, in the past out there about proper ways to prune and trim trees.
Okay. And then for the trimming and maintenance.
There's been a lot of hat racking in our neighborhood.
You see it when you walk your dogs. For the trimming and the maintenance, is a permit required, or is it only for the removal?
Removal. Yeah, there's a proper way you can trim a tree, and that's fine.
Okay.
Some of the stuff that I see all the time, even in my own neighborhood, that's not trimming. That's hat racking. That's you're killing that tree. In the long term, it's going to become hazardous. It just creates a lot of problems long term. Yeah.
Okay.
What else? I also noticed that there are exceptions in there for power line maintenance.
Yes, and that's
and then, of course, hurricane debris.
Yes.
So I think that was important. Also, wanted to piggyback off of what Drew was saying. I had it in my notes that I thought that it probably couldn't hurt if we had a full tab off of community development, a tree cutting guide or tree care guide, of which some of this would be added to it, because we certainly have. That can go in so many different directions, both commercially and with, certainly certain weekend warriors I wouldn't know anything about, climbing a tree and trimming a branch that looks dangerous, the things that are required and not required, and certainly I think the pictures and the diagrams that you had, both in your presentation and the package, spelled it out pretty nicely. I think the thing is that that information, even if we do a public information campaign, once that campaign's over, it should be readily available all the time. So
definitely, we could work on that.
Okay.
We've got a good graphics person.
Because you have nothing else going on in your department.
We got a great graphics person that can help us put something on the web, right?
Penny, this is going to seem like a kind of a weird question, but when a landscape plan is submitted and approved, do they take into account overhead power lines?
You talking about for development?
For
site development?
For commercial or residential?
Yes, yes. So,
Okay.
there's state guidelines and we follow that too. We have that in our land development code. If there's overhead lines, we only have them plant understory trees.
Okay.
If we have plans that come in and they have shade trees there, we always make the comment that
Yeah.
you really shouldn't be putting shade trees there under the underhead. It's not encouraged at all.
Okay.
So that's an automatic substitution that's allowed.
In neighborhoods where it's underground, it's not a big deal, but I
Mhm.
still see them planting, in zero lot line homes, they'll
Mhm.
plant an oak tree, the little, and then 25 years later, it's pushing the foundation of the house up or busting the
Mhm.
sidewalk.
Yeah.
So, we have that issue, and maybe, they could say, hey, this is zero lot line home, you probably shouldn't put an oak tree here or something.
There's some really great I can't speak right now, sorry. Publications about right tree, right place.
Yeah.
So we can add that to the webpage we created.
But also
Good stuff.
when a home builder submits a
Mhm.
plan and they say, oh, we're gonna plant an oak tree here and
Mhm.
there's 4 feet between the houses or whatever,
Mhm.
that's not the best thing. And then the other thing, like when FP&L has their tree companies trim these trees and you see them, no growth on one side and the other one just swings out.
Mhm.
I get they gotta do that because of the power line. Why not just remove that tree? Because are they not damaging it by cutting like 2/3 of the tree off and leaving it
actually-
just grow on one side?
Actually went to a class about that and
Okay.
Even though it looks really awkward, I remember the first time I saw that too, I was like, wow, that looks really
Yeah.
awkward on that tree. They have trained professionals that know how to cut it with allowing
Okay.
that tree to thrive
Yeah.
and maintain but keep those power lines safe. So they do a lot of work on that. They have a lot of
Okay.
training that goes into that. And even though some of those trees look trimmed very in a funny manner,
Very funny.
they make
Yeah.
sure that those cuts are in the right place to keep that tree healthy
Yeah,
and
because
alive.
you would look at the center of the tree and there's only growth on, on one side of it.
Yeah.
So it does look odd at times, but I realize they don't want them touching the power lines and creating power outage, and I get why they do it, but it just kind of looks a little crazy.
But now we encourage people not to plant shade trees under,
Under,
some of those
near-
have been in place for a
okay.
long time, but now the trend is really focusing on just making sure you're planting that right tree in the right place, making sure it's an understory tree if there's any kind of overhead lines
Yeah,
nearby.
Yeah, because at times when they do these residential lots, they don't even take into account that oak tree they planted or
Yeah.
whatever they planted. There's a water line going right to that house, and 15 years down the road, now that water meter's busted or that line is wrapped up in the tree roots.
Yeah, and I know our staff with non-residential development especially, we know when we're looking at the full
Yeah.
landscape buffers, we take into consideration conflicts with lines and things
Okay.
like that. And so it's a team effort with us looking at the landscaping and utilities looking at the lines and everything as
Yeah.
well.
Thank you. Thanks.
Just a quick comment on that, because it's funny Drew mentioned that, because I was kind of thinking along some of those same lines. I know that's a little bit off topic for what we're talking about tonight, but the how are you phrasing that? Right tree, right place?
Mhm.
I like that, because one of the
I
things we
come up
have
with it.
seen over the have you registered that one?
That's not me.
Run out tonight.
Yeah, that's
One of
good.
the things we've definitely seen over the years with the storms is great looking trees, great intentions, and they end up being in a bad place to create a lot of damage and a lot of issues. And that's something I think we need to always make sure that there's enough flexibility to allow our builders and homeowners to, ultimately they got to make that decision, right? But I think that's a good thing. The other thing that's interesting too that I've noticed is that certain types of trees in certain places around our community hold up better. I think a lot of it has to do with the substrate. You've got places like where I live, that soil's never dry. It's always wet, and like the not really the true mature oaks and hardwoods, but a lot of those that are trying to get there, every time we have a windstorm, they're down. I mean, they've been staking some of the trees in the front of that subdivision now for 25 years. They just keep going down, keep going down. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's just a soil issue, whereas you plant that same tree other places with a different substrate, it takes root better, it holds better, things like that. So something else to look at. Right place, right tree. Interesting
tree, right
example
place.
of that, our police department. We put a huge, beautiful medjool to the left of the main entrance. If you go by and look at it now, the canopy has grown so big, the back half of the canopy is smashed up to the building, which means it cannot be properly trimmed. The only way you can do is vertically cut that whole back side, which looks horrible, but good example of one weakness.
Didn't know you had an amateur botany degree.
Hey, I know how to get to YouTube.
He's multi-talented.
Where was he when they put the oaks on in Town Park.
Yeah.
Let's
That
hear
we
from
coulda
the
used
public.
you.
Would anyone here care to speak to the item? Come on up.
You're not allowed to use the phrase right tree, right place unless you get that approved with Ben.
My name's Christina Baxter. Been here in Port Orange for about 6 years now, solidly. My fiance owns a landscaping company here in the city, and I mainly had a question really as far as the new regulations. What does that say in regard to things like fusarium wilt and blackleaf spot on the orange trees, things like that? Things that need immediate removal. Is that going to be something that the city's going to look away from because it's something that will affect the other trees in the area? So I don't know if you know about fusarium wilt. When one tree is infected, it's going to affect every other tree within a certain radius immediately. There's beetles that do the same thing on these trees that have been abused. They see those holes in the trees and they attack them. And then once they've made a colony in that tree, they branch out to other trees in the area. So some of these trees require an immediate removal. I just want to know that there's going to be something to protect the homeowners and the landscapers that are trying to combat that within that clause.
Trying to do the right
She
thing.
can-
I can answer some of that, but I'm gonna see how well Penny does.
She
Thank
took
you
a
for
course
your
on
comment.
that.
Thank you for your comment. There's no penalties for emergency root. You know, you can, just like kind of if there's an emergency AC permit, right, you need to pull, you just need to make sure you provide that documentation. So, and that's actually, in the penalty section too, it states for any kind of emergency work to prevent or minimize property damage, anything that's creating a hazard, anything that's an act of God or anything like that, there's no penalties for that. Okay.
So they would still need the permit, just provide the documentation.
Yeah, it's more of a
that
documentation
that the tree is
issue.
diseased
Yeah.
or whatever.
But
Okay.
there's no penalties if you need to take it out before you can obtain that permit.
Okay, very good.
Thanks, Penny. Good. Anyone else care to speak to the item? Back to council. Final comments, questions? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
No.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-1. That brings us to second reading of ordinance number 2020-25. Amending the section 2-267 to remove the procurement of lobbyist services from the list of exempt purchases. Ordinance number 2020-25 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending section 2-267 of the Code of Ordinances, removing the procurement of lobbyist services from the list of exempt purchases, providing for codification, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2020-25.
Second.
We have a motion, proper second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. Second reading. Council, questions or comments?
No, the second reading.
There being none, anyone here care to speak to the item? Back to council. Final comments? Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. That closes the public hearing portion of the meeting. Back to the regular agenda. Panhandling discussion. Item 24. Matt, you want to set the table for us?
Yes, sir. As directed by City Council, we've reached out to Attorney Michael Kahn and engaged him to provide the city with some options related to panhandling regulations. He's here tonight. I think I'm just going to stall until he walks through those doors out back. And there it is.
I think he's gonna be here any minute, maybe second.
There he is.
Attorney Kahn comes to us with some prior experience, as you all know, with the Daytona Beach Ordinance. Also, there's been a St. Augustine Ordinance prior to that, and even a Melbourne Ordinance that he's worked on. He's got basically a lifetime of experience with First Amendment issues. So we're hoping to use some of that experience to help us gain some insight into what we can do here in Port Orange to address the panhandling.
Mr. Kahn, thanks for coming. Before you get going, I'd certainly want you to tell us what you can do and how you can help us. But because this is a discussion item, if we interrupt you with questions, I think that's probably a good thing so that we can keep the flow going. So.
Yes. That's fine, Mr. Mayor, and also congratulations. I added
Thank
to it. My name is Michael Kahn, 482 North Harbor City Boulevard, Melbourne. My background is for about the past 35 years. I have been special counsel to a variety of different Florida cities and counties on First Amendment issues. And most recently, because of a number of different things societally, I have advised and created and prepared panhandling ordinances for Melbourne, St. Augustine, also Daytona Beach, as you all know, and I'm currently retained by Delray Beach as well. The ordinance is a distance-based ordinance. It is also an ordinance that is going to deal with the whole issue of strict scrutiny because of the recent Supreme Court case of Reed versus Gilbert. In my ordinances, my panhandling ordinances, and as a matter of fact, all of my ordinances have never been challenged. Now, some people think that it would have been better had they been challenged and found and been sustained. I differ in that, okay? My whole goal in presenting and hopefully being retained by you all is to create an ordinance that will never be challenged. And that's one of the reasons that I do my ordinances in a certain way. And that certain way focuses on an extensive record. And the record is testimony. Roughly, there'll be between 20 and 25 people who testify, and I can even break that down even more specifically. Roughly 5 from the police department, 5 from the fire department, a couple from the Department of Public Works. There'll also be a physician, and there'll be a planner. Your planner is supposedly a rock star, and I'm looking forward to working with her. Because of the bottom line of all of this is to create an ordinance that is impermeable and impregnable to challenge. Now, I've done some looking as far as the maps regarding Port Orange, and I understand, albeit superficially still, that you have areas that need to be dealt with regard to the panhandlers. And I want to start by saying that part of my goal and job is to protect the rights of the panhandlers. Panhandling is a protected speech category, by case law, by the Schaumburg case to be precise. So as a part of what we're going to be doing through the maps, basically we'll be protecting the rights of panhandling. The maps themselves will create distance parameters. It'll be 100 feet circumference around, you I think have 10 schools in Port Orange. There'll be 100-foot circumference around each one of these schools, number one. Number two, there'll be 150-foot drawbacks from all intersections. And that is, when I say all intersections, on the sidewalks approaching all intersections. That is to prevent some of the habits of panhandlers from getting into traffic and putting into danger both pedestrians and people who are in the cars alike as they solicit funds from them.
What was that distance, Mr. Khan?
150.
On the intersection?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then there'll be a whole number of different parameters of 20 feet. 20 feet from roughly vulnerable populations, for example, in ATMs, outside dining, and places like that, bus stops, places that are vulnerable where people can be accosted, as it were, by panhandlers in soliciting money. Now, aggressive panhandling, which is specifically defined, is going to be forbidden throughout the whole city. Aggressive panhandling is when a person is panhandled and refuses, and then the panhandler keeps up. And that can get to be very vicious and very frightful to some of the citizens. We'll be protecting citizens, we'll be protecting businesses, we'll be protecting also tourists. Now, as far as the testimony goes, let me continue and say that, as I said, you have roughly about 5 or so from police, 5 or so from fire. You'll have some people from the Department of Public Works. You'll have a physician who's going to testify as to some of the habits of panhandlers that are inimical to the health, safety, and welfare of your citizens. And some of that testimony will be very graphic, but it's important because that medical testimony is unrefuted and will lead us to be able to survive the burden of Reed versus Gilbert, which is strict scrutiny. And that is, although it's arguable whether you should have to do strict scrutiny, we're accepting, of course, the Supreme Court as saying what it says. So strict scrutiny means, and we can fulfill that, and my ordinances go straight for strict scrutiny to show a compelling state interest in the health, safety, and welfare of your citizens and your children, and that satisfies that burden. Another part of the testimony is going to be from roughly 10 to 15 business owners and business employees and customers who have been burdened with the adverse secondary effects of panhandling that I have basically talked a little bit about tonight. Those adverse secondary effects talk about some of the health habits of panhandling, also accosting citizens, impeding pedestrian walkways, impeding exits and entrances from all commercial businesses. There's a number of different of those 20-foot parameters that we will be addressing. So the other thing about this ordinance, which is peculiar to the times in which we are, unfortunately, it is an anti-COVID, anti-pandemic ordinance because some of the hygienic habits of the panhandlers, which are inimical to the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens, and can cause the spread of COVID and, God forbid, any other pandemic, are mitigated by my ordinance. And it's going to be, I know Delray is going to be the first ordinance easily in the state of Florida that's going to have anti-COVID and anti-pandemic provisions in it, and Port Orange, if I'm retained, will be the second. And Mr. Mayor, that's roughly, oh yeah, want to mention one other thing. This testimony, and as much as we can do the witness interviews, they can be done by, at least the witness interviews can be done by Zoom. That's what I'm doing down in Delray Beach. I'm having just numerous Zoom meetings with my potential witnesses. It saves time. It saves, because I can do it that way rather than having to come up and interview the witnesses, period. Now, in the way I'll be coming before the city council will be, I will suggest, in 2 separate meetings, specially set. Each one of these meetings will be about 2 to 2.5 hours long to get also the record of the individuals that I've said. There's roughly 20 to 25 witnesses that will be heard in that period of time. The other thing I'm able to do because of First Amendment law is my prior records for St. Augustine and Daytona Beach will also be a part of your record. First Amendment law permits me, even though, for example, Port Orange is different than both logistically and qualitatively from the other jurisdictions, First Amendment law permits me to assemble a record of other cities and put it into a current record. Why is that important to you? Well, it's a part of why my ordinances have never been challenged. Because your record, if it comes after the Delray Beach ordinance, which should be done by the end of the year, will be roughly 8,000 pages long. That is an intimidation and a disincentive to challenge it. Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the time to present, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that anybody has.
Sure, there are a few. Who wants to start?
Who's proofreading the who's going to proofread the 8,000 pages?
Mr. Khan, you indicated that one of the parts of the ordinance would be 150 feet from the schools.
100 feet, ma'am.
100 feet. Was one of them 150 in terms of the three things you mentioned?
150 feet from all signalized
Oh,
intersections.
signalized, okay, I got those backwards.
On the,
Okay,
on the,
here's my question. You haven't seen the data yet, so how do you know schools are hotspots?
Well, it's not schools being hotspots. It's protective of schools. You don't have to have data to say that you want to protect your children.
Okay, well,
so in other
my
words,
question then would be, if you don't know if it's a hotspot, I'm saying, and you're meeting the strict scrutiny test, how are you going to answer that?
well,
Because wouldn't a good challenge say, if you're using strict scrutiny, that you really have to have a compelling governmental interest to restrict panhandling around schools, and you say, well, it has to do with protecting students and children, but you have no data that says that's a hotspot. How do you reconcile it?
It's candidly not the way the law works. Okay, to have a protective, the health, safety, and welfare of protecting children, I don't have to have a Port Orange school that is a hot spot in order to do that. For example, as a part of the record that would come in support of your ordinance, there'll be a testimony of Daytona Beach, which will be testimony by police officers who will say that what they found next to schools, which are backpacks with syringes in them, was disgusting other anecdotes about what was found near schools in Daytona Beach, also in St. Augustine. So all of that is a part of your record. I don't need to have any specific anecdote from your police or to have an ordinance that protects the health, safety, and welfare of children. But I will guarantee you, of course, I've been talking to your chief of police, and we're going to be setting up interviews with police who are familiar with the schools. I will guarantee you, unless it's a totally anomaly, that there's going to be anecdotes about what panhandlers have left in the circumference of the schools. But the record's going to be plentiful, and that's the way the law works. I don't need, if the court is not going to presume, it doesn't have to presume anything in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare of children. Okay? I don't need a particular set of data for Port Orange, even though I know I'm going to get one, but I don't need one if I have other testimony and also from other places further that I have just the idea of protecting children. That in and of itself, the health protection, health, safety, and welfare of children is a compelling state interest, period. I could just stop right there.
Okay. So, you've indicated your ordinances have been effective, and you foresee them that they will continue to be effective. Are you going to offer us the lawyer's money-back guarantee so that if we get challenged, you'll defend the case for free?
No.
Okay, because when we contract with, let's say, solid waste to pick up garbage, and if they miss a certain number of streets, they come back and handle it. We don't pay anything extra. And so you wouldn't even give us a benefit if your ordinance turns out to be challenged? It seems to me that we should at least get some compensation because you're presenting, just by your own comment here, that you think it probably is impregnable. So in fact, if it's not, I would feel a lot better voting for your services in your ordinance if in fact you provided some sort of incentive or money back guarantee if that proves not to be the case.
I'm not guaranteeing.
Oh, okay.
I'm not guaranteeing.
I guess I misunderstood what you had said earlier.
No, what I said is I'm going to present it at, and hopefully if the past is any indication of the future, it hasn't been challenged yet. In the 5 years since Melbourne or more, the 3 years now, I believe, since St. Augustine, and the coming up on 2 years. But I'm not going to guarantee that, ma'am, because I don't know. Now, I don't know whether or not your city has insurance for attorney's costs. I don't know that, okay? But what my point is that I'm not guaranteeing, and I think that's a very good question, because I'm not guaranteeing you that it won't be challenged. But I'm going to say that my methodology and the way that I construct this ordinance has made it so that it's very difficult to challenge, which includes the numbers of pages of the record.
And so, following that train of thought, when you talk about documentation, do you believe qualitative data is equal to quantitative data, or as effective?
I think they're, in First Amendment law, they're roughly equivalent, okay?
To date, so far.
Well, I mean, I'm just going by what the Supreme Court of the United States says so.
Right.
So if they move to the right or left or center, anecdotal evidence is acceptable to the Supreme Court of the United States. So if it's acceptable to the Supreme Court of the United States, it certainly is acceptable to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Chase?
Yeah, I got a few questions of my own as well, Mr. Khan. I appreciate you taking the time to come out here.
Sure.
And I was in favor of moving forward and exploring this. Whether or not I can pull the trigger, I'm having a little more difficult time crossing over that finish line. There's all sorts of reasons why we should pass an ordinance such as this, and I agree with every single one of them, frankly. And I appreciate the honesty in not being able to guarantee that it not only would not be challenged, but also guarantee that it would not hold up. For me, there's only one reason not to pass this, unfortunately, in my opinion, because I'm having a difficult time internally justifying it as being constitutional. The last thing I want to do is tell our residents there's nothing I can do, but what I don't want to do is fill nothing with wrong. Now you recognize that this is content-based prohibition of or regulation, I would say.
I recognize that is why I recognize two levels. Okay, I recognize that arguably it's content-based, and content-based regulation means nothing more than, as we've discussed already, it requires strict scrutiny, which furthermore requires, for satisfaction of strict scrutiny, a compelling state interest, which I believe my ordinance goes directly and satisfies.
Going back to one of the questions that Dr. Ford mentioned about not having the data to put together, to call a school a hotspot. It looks to me you're going to use the secondary effects doctrine, correct?
Right.
Okay.
It's adverse secondary effects of panhandling.
Do we know what the secondary effects are around schools for this particular type of speech?
Oh, sure. We know that it's health, safety, and welfare because the testimony previously is that I was mentioning to Dr. Ford that around schools, number one, the children have been frightened by panhandling. They've been aggressively panhandled. There's been backpacks which has syringes, knives, and other weapons that have been found in them and left there by panhandling. There's been open urination and open defecation on or about different school grounds by panhandlers. Right there is easily enough evidence to support my ordinance.
But will not the opposing side argue that, listen, you're going too far with what you're doing? You already have laws on the books that prevent and punish these type of activities. I would, I won't ask the question, but I would assume that we have laws against public defecation now. We have laws against that punish stalking or harassment. We have laws against some of the things that you just mentioned. Would that not be has that argument not been presented before in other panhandling cases?
No, because the fact that there's other laws which may or may not exist, by the way, which affect that behavior has virtually nothing to do with the regulation of the people that do that behavior. Meaning that just because there's a law against X, if my anecdotal evidence links panhandlers with that sort of behavior, then by virtue of that and nothing else, according to the Supreme Court of the United States, in not only panhandling, areas of panhandling, but in areas of street vending, street performers, adult entertainment, sign ordinances, is sufficient to regulate panhandlers, which is all I'm looking to do. I'm looking to protect the free speech of panhandling, and I'm looking to regulate, because you were using terms that are sophisticated in the art, and you'll know this one. I'm looking to regulate the time, place, and manner of panhandling, just as I can regulate the time, place, and manner of other speech which is much more central to First Amendment law than panhandling. The First Amendment law is gradated. At its center is political speech. At the outer periphery of it, and only marginally so, is erotic speech. And you move forward from that toward a center. But I can regulate even political speech by its time, place, and manner. So if I can regulate political speech by regulating its time, place, and manner, I darn sure can regulate panhandling.
But you're going to be using different tests, correct?
It won't matter, because each of the tests, the tests are what are the adverse secondary effects of whom you're looking to regulate. That's it. And you have to have testimony and supportive evidence, which can include anecdote, okay, to put forward evidence to regulate the time, place, and manner of panhandling. It's really very straightforward. It's not even doubtful that I can regulate panhandling. It's not even close to doubtful.
A couple more and I'll be done. And these are not, it's not a, there's nothing more I want to do more than anything than to establish an ordinance. Again, I'm just wrestling. Let me ask you, can you provide me with one panhandling ordinance that has withstood a challenge?
I'm sure I can, but it's yeah, let me
rephrase
v. Gilbert.
Let me
Okay.
rephrase the question. Can you provide me with one panhandling ordinance that has withstood a challenge since Reed and Gilbert decision?
Not in the state of Florida.
Anywhere in the country?
That I don't know. I mean, I'm not, I could probably search one out. However, I think that, and I'll say it this way, excuse me, is an irrelevant point. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because the fact that the ordinances that have never been dealt with directly involving strict scrutiny, that's why it's made it more difficult to find an ordinance like that, Councilman. What I mean by that is, my ordinance does not beg the question of strict scrutiny. It does not beg the question of compelling state interest. It's right within my ordinance. I'm not sure there's any other ordinance in the state of Florida, bluntly, that directly addresses strict scrutiny. Because I'm not sure, candidly, bluntly, and perhaps immodestly, that there's a lawyer that understands that you don't have to wink an eye at strict scrutiny. That the medical data that your physician, whomever, when I get him to testify, and I can get, if I needed to, the doctor who testified either from St. Augustine or for Daytona Beach, the medical data is irrefutable, okay, that the hygienic habits of panhandlers are inimical to the health, safety, and welfare of your city's children, tourists, and anybody else. And so I say that that's the reason that there's no ordinance in the state of Florida, in any event. I don't know of another individual who's prepared an ordinance like I have, with the record that I have, meaning that the thousands of pages in support, that directly deals with strict scrutiny without winking an eye.
Well, and And that's why I've been willing to certainly look at yours and much more in depth. But at the same time, I think it's entirely very relevant that there hasn't been a court case anywhere in the country that has withstood a challenge.
I can't say anywhere in the country.
Based on anything that I've read, and I've read a lot of these cases, helping homeless, the city of Tampa, Clatterbuck, Charlottesville, Norton or Springfield, Cut Inverse, Portland. So many of those, after reading all these cases, are just so strikingly similar to the city of Daytona's.
No, they're not. Oh, that I absolutely take umbrage that they are no way similar to my ordinance. There's none of them. Like Tampa had a record of nowhere near the thousands of pages.
You're suggesting the record is different.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm just getting started. Okay? That Tampa ordinance did not deal with satisfying strict scrutiny. Did not deal with that. And I just know it didn't. There's no ordinance.
Agree. They lost.
Well, that's the point, but that's not what you said. Okay? You said they were strikingly similar to Daytona Beach's ordinance, and it isn't. That's not true.
In the sense of how you're trying to regulate.
Well, no.
That's the similarity I'm talking about. The aggressive panhandling, if they are versus Worcester. I heard you say that tonight.
That's not a Florida case to begin with, and
No.
we only have a boss in Florida that's called the 11th Circuit. I don't really care what any other circuit has done in the country. So I don't care that. The 11th Circuit has never declaimed Tampa didn't appeal their loss. I know why they didn't, okay? But I know why they didn't. But they didn't, and I'm happy they didn't. The 11th Circuit has no constructed law on this issue at all. Zero. And that's good for you. And that's good for Daytona Beach because it's never been attacked. Now, what you said that my own personal humble opinion was inaccurate. Tampa's ordinance was nothing like Daytona Beach. It was struck down. And one of the things that they did that Daytona Beach didn't do, nor will yours, is they banned panhandling. They banned it. That's foolish, okay? Because a ban is subject to attack. So, there is no, and so the Daytona Beach ordinance and the St. Augustine ordinance are both unique approaches.
You're saying Tampa banned it in the entire city?
They
or just
banned it
specific
in a
areas?
certain area.
Specific areas, yeah. You just said they banned it.
That's what I said. They banned it either in downtown Tampa or they banned it. And you can't do that.
Well, they did location ban, which is what you're presenting. Is it not?
No, that's not. I don't even know what location ban is, but I will tell you, my ordinance, what it is and will be, is a distance parameter. And once those distance parameters are set, there's going to be several things that happen. Number one, panhandling, I will guarantee it because it's just the way of the nature of the ordinance, will be approved in well over 90% of the town of Port Orange, as it is in well over 96% in Daytona Beach, and I think it's 94% in St. Augustine. Okay, there is no other ordinance like mine that has a distance parameter. That's why in no way is any ordinance that you can point to like my ordinance. Just isn't. There's no distance parameter ordinances that I know of easily in the state of Florida. Okay, but it's one of the secrets, and it's not a secret, quote unquote, it's one of the approaches that's unique to my ordinance, which I think makes it very strong. It's a distance parameter based ordinance.
I don't have any more questions. I'll just, my final comment would be I've read countless number of cases, and so many of them all similar language here and out, and nothing throughout the entire country has withstood a strict scrutiny test. And as much as I want to pass it, I'm a constitutionalist, and if there's something within me that does not feel it's constitutional, I can't sleep at night knowingly pass something I don't believe will hold up. But that's just my opinion.
Just remembering, you asked to have this discussion.
Yeah, there's no problem with having a discussion. I think we should have this discussion.
Okay. Drew?
In Daytona, I saw it on a regular basis before you did this for them.
Right.
You know, that work the corners, that'd be basically on every corner, and then also in the medians. As the car, you know, on ISB, that stand in the medians, and as the car stopped because of a red light, they'd walk right up to the car in the median. Is that distance going to pertain to our medians as well?
No, the medians actually are covered, I think, by a state statute. But be that as it may, the medians aren't included, Councilman, in this. What it does include, if you can visualize, a signal.
Yeah.
And then of the four sides of the signal, okay, northeast, south, west, basically each one of them has a sidewalk that's running up to a corner. That's where the 150 feet comes in. 150 feet back from each of the legs, as it were,
Okay.
of the.
So it's not a circle
No.
from the center,
Nope.
but 150 foot
No,
in
it's-
each direction. So, tell me again, how are our police officers going to prevent them from waiting in the medians and going up to cars with the shoe
Well,
or the
number
bucket
one,
or
if
the
it's
whatever?
the way, if you look at the pragmatics of it, and as a matter of fact, I was privileged, you know, at a break.
Yeah.
JT, one of the Daytona Beach police
Yeah.
officer, is a particular friend of mine. And he would be a great one to ask that question to, because he was, Chief Capri kind of designated him as my helper, as it were, and he put together a lot of testimony about that. So this is what JT would say, okay? Because in the planning, when we were sitting with our planner there, John Clary, and we discussed with JT the idea of what 150 foot would give him, the police.
Yeah.
By driving them back that far from the light,
Okay.
you know, what JT said, and I just asked him, standing right over there, I said, how's it going in Daytona Beach? He says, I retired. They made me a hero because of you. He says, they actually picked me up and carried me out, okay? And here's what he would say. He would say that by driving the individuals back, the panhandlers back, 150 feet, what you're doing is you're disincentivizing them, okay, to go ahead and go out. Now, I'll tell you, if you read all the press, one of the things that I did through Matt was give you what I call my press pack from Daytona Beach, and I was hoping it was disseminated. And the interesting part about that, Chief Capri, first of all, you know, the press is what the press is.
Yeah.
I can't control them. I couldn't written a better script than what they gave me. But in the early days, right after the ordinance was passed, Chief Capri was warning one of the panhandlers away from the intersection.
Yeah.
He says, well, you can go back here. And the panhandler says, no, I'm not. He says, I can't make any money back there. That's the point.
Well, I understand that part, but you said it didn't apply to the median.
Nope.
So what is preventing them, and our chief is
We
here,
have a current law.
are we going to be able to keep them out of the medians, walking up to the,
We have
he just said the distance,
We have a current law that you are not allowed
already illegal.
in
Right.
So-
the median.
Okay.
That is a law.
It's out of
Okay.
my, that's out of my.
so if there was
province.
one there tomorrow, he could interact with them and.
Yeah, it's a jurisdictional
Okay,
situation.
okay.
I don't have jurisdiction over.
I
the
got
committee.
you. But that was what concerned me, because they would, you know, they'd take that captive audience that's stuck in that stacked turning lane, and they'd be
And
2
we
feet away
do.
from the car, like, you know.
Councilman Bastian, we already do warn and ticket people and arrest. I don't think we've
Okay.
gotten to arrest
I
in the
just
median
wanna-
because they catch on, but we kick people out of the median all the time.
Okay.
Not just panhandlers. That's a safety thing.
Okay.
And that's a statute or a ordinance.
Drew, could I ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
Just along that, and maybe it's a question for the chief, or do we have anything in place that prevents, or that, where you can ask someone to move on if they're blocking a sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay.
Tom Grimaldi, Chief of Police. Yes, you can't block a sidewalk, you can't block pedestrian traffic, just like you can't block vehicular traffic. So we do have that. What we see is many times they learn as we
Right.
address it. They kind of push themselves where they are not blocking the sidewalk. and I know exactly who you're speaking of and where you're speaking of. I went out there the other day myself and watched. But they have to be blocking, and in that case, they learn from. It's like building a better mousetrap.
Right.
So, but we do have something for that.
Okay, and one more question, and you kind of, I think I know where you're going to go with it, but the, you're addressing signalized intersections.
Yes.
What about the intersections of our shopping centers and our big box stores that might not be at a signal, but the person sits right at the entrance, where you got to stop to go on to Dunlawton or Ridgewood,
Private property.
and it's not near a signalized. How will we keep them away from
That's.
there?
Let me answer it in generalized
Okay.
terms, which covers this specific question. The ordinance won't be perfect. In other words, there's fluidity to it. In other words, if I block somebody in a particular intersection, okay, just because he's a nuisance, guess what? I'll make it up. Let's say he's at a McDonald's, okay, totally making this up. He's at a McDonald's across for some sort of intersection there, okay, and so I block him just because he's just doing that. Well, guess what? He'll show up at a Burger King at Y intersection next. So the ordinance isn't perfect, okay, and it's fluid because of the fact that it's distance parameters.
Yeah.
It's not a ban, so basically, so I can't really answer that. I mean, it may not work with regard to that, but I'll be looking at everything if we take.
Because it strikes me that we can do it at a signalized intersection, but we have some major commercial properties that their entrance and exits are onto main
Just
roads,
driveways. Yeah.
not
Well,
near a
it-
signalized intersection, and that's where they're going to go.
Well, you see, here's one of the other, when I use the word secrets, it's kind of a silly kind of word. I'll say one of the other facets of First Amendment regulation is it's standardized. Why can I do it at signalized intersections? Because I can standardize that. In other words, I'm not picking on a particular intersection. I'm picking on all intersections. In other words, that's a major point of the ordinance, the way you have to look at it. It's easy to do it that way because I'm not picking on one or another type or a place of of an intersection. Give you a good example of a different way. Now, Councilman brought up the idea of content-based regulation. There's a great case. It's called the Metro Media case. It's out of San Diego. It's a Supreme Court case. It's a case in which all billboards were banned. I said the word banned in downtown San Diego. Now, one of the ways they could do that, and one of the ills that was meant to kill, or to get rid of, or regulate, is visual blight, concern over auto accidents, etc. But one of the ways that they avoided any attack was because they banned all billboards. That's the way I'm regulating all intersections. It's easier to do.
Yeah, but you're saying only all signalized
Signalized intersections.
I'm talking about the other intersections.
I know, and I'm saying to you, the ordinance isn't perfect, but I'm trying to describe to you why, on a First Amendment basis, I can do across the board all signalized, because I'm not picking on a particular
Can't we say all intersections, period?
No. I mean, you probably could, I could look at that.
Because what I fear is that they're going to say, okay, I can't be at this intersection because I'm within 150 feet, but I can go to Walmart because it's 200 feet from the light, and I got a big captive audience turning onto Dunlawton, and they're going to sit right there on the sidewalk, which isn't private property, and we're not going to be able to.
Yeah, and I'm going to go back and say the ordinance is not going to be perfect. It won't be. You're going to have, and I'll give you a great example using St. Augustine. Okay, if I looked at St. Augustine, I was looking at all the complaints that were coming in about St. George Street. Okay, as a matter of fact, Mayor Henry in Daytona Beach, when he was interviewing me for the job, and I appeared in front of him much like I'm appearing in front of you, he says, I've already done my research. I said, you don't know me. He goes, I went up to St. Augustine. I walked down St. George Street, okay? So I didn't ban the panhandlers, just as I've dealt with St. George Street before, with a street vendor ordinance and a street performer ordinance. In none of those ordinances, because there's commonality between First Amendment ordinances, I didn't ban, okay? What I did was exactly what I'm proposing to do here, to put a distance parameter around it. Well, guess what? So I did that, and Chief Fox, my now good friend up in St. Augustine, said that he was getting complaints, a little bit of complaints. Why? Well, because there's little nooks and crannies on St. George Street where panhandlers can be. That's what I'm saying to you. The ordinance is not perfect, but it does the job. It does the job. One other thing I think I mentioned was 20 foot from exit and entrance of all commercial establishments as well. I think I mentioned that, but that's a part of the ordinance as
So
well.
that would be that commercial.
That could be. Yes, sir.
Intersection.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Scott?
Thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I know it's been a long night. I don't know if you're driving back tonight or what have you, but
I've got dinner back there, you know.
but we appreciate it, and this has been something that we've been needing to have this conversation for a really, really long time.
Sure.
And I appreciate Chase is the reason we're here tonight. So,
I appreciate that.
Great discussion with you over the Zoom. You answered a lot of my questions there. I've come to better understand the concept behind this. Like Chase and everybody else, I've read a lot of the other ordinances. I do think there is a lot of uniqueness to this. It may not be the right word, but that's what I'll throw out for right now.
It's a good word.
I discussed with you that as I've traveled around the state the last couple of years, I've seen different things the cities are trying to do. Like when I was up in Destin recently, Fort Myers last year. Looks like everybody, this is not a Port Orange issue. Obviously, I know you know that. This is a national problem, and
It is.
I see cities. I was in Salt Lake City, Utah, over the holidays last year, out of control.
It's horrible.
One of the concerns I fear is that this is, and I think Mayor or somebody was touching on a minute ago, the police chief, but this is it's somewhat interesting, but it's also very concerning. Is the evolution of this panhandling thing. And it's like, I liken it back to my days in early law enforcement, watching drug careers and how they learn. You take measures, you make an enforcement, they learn from it, they do something a little different next time, and we're seeing that, and they are learning. In the police department are going out there and they're enforcing the laws that they can, but then they quickly learn and educate themselves. Well, if I step back 3 feet, I'm good, or what have you. And so there's a lot of that stuff that I'm watching. And I'm going somewhere with this, but a lot of stuff that I'm watching with that. And the concern that I'm really seeing is that, we have a panhandling issue now in our city that we did not used to have. And I know a lot of cities didn't used to have that. But it's an evolving issue. It's a growing problem. It is definitely something that I believe cities all across the country are right now on the fringes of trying to figure out, okay, how can we stay within those court decisions and try to find other pathways to get to where we need to go to protect our residents in our cities and not allow the quality of life to be diminished and all those things. So couple of things that
If I could interrupt one
Sure.
way to answer some of the things that you're concerned about is, and I hope, and again, this is not done out of immodesty. I hope you all retain me. I hope you give me a chance to serve your city. If you don't, you don't. Okay, so don't mistake what I'm about ready to say. The reason why I sent up that press pack is because it says anything that I could hope to say about the effect and some of the things that you are bringing up. Because I don't necessarily agree, nor do I think that Chief Capri or JT would say that, the panhandlers have evolved around my ordinance. I just don't think they would. I don't think they'd agree with you. I don't think Chief Fox would agree with you. Okay, I think that the fact of the matter is, I think the problem with panhandling and why it's gotten to be a problem is exactly what I was talking to Councilman, is it Tremont? Did I do that right?
That's right.
Okay, Councilman Tremont about. And it's this. Before Reed versus Gilbert, okay, all we needed to do was satisfy intermediate review. All I needed to do to satisfy intermediate review was do either a significant or an important government interest. Different, okay? When Reed v. Gilbert came along, it scared the heck out of people. I know that. It scared people so bad, like in St. Augustine and in Daytona. What they did, their police departments were told to stand down. Don't do anything, God forbid, or else, you know, we're gonna get, you know, hit like Tampa did. So what I approached it was not like, oh my gosh, Reed v. Gilbert was terrible. It was, how can I legitimately, like what you said as a constitutionalist, satisfy Reed v. Gilbert? I didn't want to avoid Reed v. Gilbert. That's where I think all the problems were when they started to roll back those cases that upheld panhandling. Every case that you cited was originated by a court that upheld the panhandling law, but it was bounced back and nobody knew what to do with it. So instead of like going like this about it, I thought about it. And I thought, well, if I apply a distance parameter to it, that's not been done. If I do a distance parameter, A, like I've done in all my other First Amendment work, and B, address strict scrutiny head on with the medical data of the, I focused on in St. Augustine, open defecation and open urination. And basically, I had my doctor there who was a Marine and had served 2 tours in Iraq. And so he testified. And Isabel Lopez, the city lawyer, came over to me. He testified as to the effects of the anecdotes that he'd heard about open defecation and open urination on the children, because in St. Augustine there's so many of the kids that come by, what would happen to them, their health, safety, and welfare. So that's the way I dealt with Reed versus Gilbert. I basically dealt and hit it. I've satisfied it, and I have a large record, and that's, I think, why in Daytona Beach and in St. Augustine, I don't think they've evolved around my ordinance.
Yeah, and I wasn't referring to that. I was talking about here at Port Orange, how the panhandling just in general has evolved. We've seen it evolve over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I know that it's going to continue, and you can see that pretty much in any city in the United States right now, I think.
Right.
Definitely in the state of Florida, it seems like. But so in a couple of things that, as I've done my research, so to speak, that I do like about the ordinance that you've been creating is that it is not a ban, even though it gets sold that way in the media, which works into the city's favor. Whatever, that's fine. But you know, it occurred to me while you were talking a minute ago. You know, we just had an election in our city yesterday, and then, you know, I've always thought as a constitutionalist myself that there's no greater thing than political free speech, yet we restrict it in this very city. Right? We tell you how big your signs can be. We tell you what disclaimers have to be on it. Homeowners associations don't let you put them in your yard at all on your private property. I mean, so there's all these different. You know, you were talking about that. I'm like, God, we just had an election in our city, and there's all kinds of restrictions to that. And,
exactly.
And I get some have been challenged, some have never been challenged, and so forth and so on. So I can appreciate that. But getting back to my point is, I like that this isn't a complete ban. I think there's some merit to that with me, that this is more about restricting by distance. I will tell you that I'm a little, I think 150 feet in an intersection is not far enough. I would rather see that quite lengthy. And the reason I say that is because I've got a background in law enforcement. I've been on those streets. I see things differently a little bit prospectively. And I've been, like JT was talking earlier, you know, he and I have known each other for a long time. We went to rookie school together.
Good.
But, you know, like in our intersections particularly, much like some in Daytona, is that, you know, sometimes in busy times, which, by the way, the panhandlers know when that at. It's almost like ringing a dinner bell, right? You know, those traffic backups can be 3, 4, 5, 1,000 feet. And so I follow you where you're going with that. I get it. I think you and I talked. I
Yeah.
told you what I saw in Destin, where they had the signs up that said, you know, no panhandling within 150 feet of this intersection, that kind of stuff. I'm just commenting on it.
Right.
I'm certainly, listen, you've done way more research on that. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just throwing it out that if there's a way to extend that, I would be interested in that.
And can I comment on
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Okay. As I mentioned to you one-on-one, it's important to bring this forward. One of the reasons that I don't want to vary my distances, I don't want Port Orange to be picked on. I don't want, I want my entire record, which would be 8,000 pages, depending on timing, to come in support of Port Orange. That's why the conformity is important. I don't want somebody to say, as Councilman Tremont said, fairly enough, that, oh, well, this isn't like the Daytona Beach ordinance. You've got all this record coming in that says it. I don't want to say, well, yeah, but their distances are bigger. I don't want that. Okay, I want that because the testimony that JT gave, because it was under direct examination, I said, JT does 150 feet protect the streets off the signalized intersection? He said, yes. Does 100 feet circumference around a school? Why wouldn't it be 125, 200, 300? Well, yes. Would that be more protection? Sure. But I don't want anybody to point a finger at this ordinance and say, oh, no, that's not like your Daytona ordinance. I want the entire record to be able to move in, because JT's testimony supports your ordinance. That's why.
And then just to comment to, and look, I mean, at this point, I'm definitely willing. I think we should go farther down this path. I think we should allow you to do your research and construct an ordinance. At some point, obviously, it falls upon our shoulders on this dais to decide to pass an ordinance. And it's really at that point whether or not we take action or not take an action. But I like where we're at today. And we're talking about signalized intersections. In law enforcement, we, like statutorily, all intersections, if we use the phrase traffic control device, falls into that. Whether it's a stop sign or a stop light, they're all by state statute considered traffic control devices. So anyways, just for whatever that's worth, I don't know if that's beneficial in moving forward in the future, but that's how that's looked upon in the courts, is because written plenty of those citations, and it doesn't matter whether that's a four-way intersection, flashing light, static stop sign, all those different things fall under that state statute of approved traffic control devices. So that's all. Okay. Why don't we hear from the mayor?
Well, question I have, and we talked about this one-on-one, is what is the time cycle from the point of engagement to the point of implementation?
It's a great question. As a matter of fact, when I was interviewed by Delray Beach, had a big meeting at the beginning. It was before the onset of the pandemic, and so the city manager asked me. He said, "We all need this ordinance." He says, "We've been in contact with your other jurisdictions. It's worked. We want to do it." He said, "How long?" Your question. And I said, "Well, if I use Daytona Beach as any indication, 7 months." Okay. And then he said, "Did I hear you say 4 months?" I said, "No, sir. You had 7 months." Now, here's the reality post-pandemic, and this is, I'm using Delray Beach as an example. If you all will permit me to use Zoom meetings with the witnesses, okay, that helps me, because Zoom meetings mean that I don't have to come up from Melbourne. Because let me tell you, the witness meetings are going to be very crisp as I put together the testimony. Let me tell you briefly what it is. It's the same for each witness. I'll pretend this is police. Pretend this is JT. JT, please give your background. He gives his background. How long have you worked for Daytona Beach? He tells me. Have you, in your years at Daytona Beach, had occasion to see the impact of panhandling? Yes. Would you please tell the city council, city commission, what you've seen? Well, I've seen one incident, and he will give a name. so-and-so was openly defecating. I've seen another incident around a school where there was a backpack that was picked up with a syringe in it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you extend that through fire, okay, because the EMTs come and they are the ones who answer the calls sometimes, where they see individuals, bluntly, panhandlers, known panhandlers, soaked in their own urine or in defecation, okay, and they're going to testify to that. And then you get Department of Public Works, and they're going to testify to how they have had to clean it up, okay. Then you're going to have your physician when we get to him. Then you're going to have your planner. If I can do those by Zoom, then I can move that, considerably. But this ordinance is map-driven. Now, every time when I've talked to Matt, and we've had many conversations about this, he has touted Ashley, okay, who I've heard is a, quote, rock star, end quote. I have an engineering company that does my mapping, okay? He said, no need. He says, we've got Ashley. I said, that's great. But the ordinance is a map-driven ordinance, meaning that when I start to work with Ashley, she's going to tell me because I'm going to hand her my proposed ordinance, okay, distance parameters. She's going to apply them to your city limits. I'm then going to see how that application works. Does that work for you? It's at that point when she can give me a map, okay, of your city with my distance parameters on it, that I will be able to move forward and submit an ordinance, in period. So when I first meet her, basically, I'm going to ask her, I'm going to say, here's my distance parameters. How long is it going to take you to give me a map? I'll be better able to answer your question then. So, but if you want to use Daytona Beach, it was 7 months. Delray is going to be close to 7 months, but there has been an interruption because I had to stop.
And I know we've talked about this before, but I think what is important is if we engage your services, we need to set a reasonable expectation. Because, I get a ton of emails and a handful of calls about panhandlers, constantly. So when
I'm going to want to see them too.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
What happens though is that people say, and you tell them, hey, this is what we're doing, we're having this conversation tonight, and a month from now, it's like, well, what's going on?
Right.
So we need to be able to set reasonable expectations about what this process is for people.
That's wonderful. And if any part that I can play in it, Mr. Mayor, I'll play. Meaning that, for example, with Daytona Beach, I think you and I had this discussion. I worked through Jim Cameron with that, with the regional.
Jim.
Yeah. And I loved it, okay? Basically, and he set up the appointments for me to interview the witnesses that I did. And it was great, okay? But that was the way that I communicated sometimes to my citizens.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'll communicate in the best possible ways, to your constituents. Because the point is this is a constituent-based ordinance. It's going to help your citizens.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to help your citizens. And it will be probably at this point the second ordinance that's going to have direct evidence that's going to go Councilman Tremont again to strict scrutiny. You have an additional facet that prior ordinances didn't have, COVID. And the reason why I'm going to be able to link panhandlers to habits that are going to have testimony. I just talked to my Delray Beach physician, and I said, this is where I would like to ask your opinion. I said, if I establish for you, open defecation, open urination is attributable to panhandlers, does that have an effect to the spread of COVID? He said, absolutely it does. Because of the fact that sort of hygienic is anti what we're all about here when I come in with a mask or wash your hands. So there's going to be testimony in your ordinance which goes directly to Reed v. Gilbert, which goes directly to strict scrutiny, that the attributable habits to panhandlers can cause the spread of COVID and, God forbid, other pandemics. So I've labored mightily, Councilman, to satisfy Reed v. Gilbert. And I think that it's the only good news I can say about the pandemic, and that is that it helps this ordinance. It's going to help this ordinance support it.
Okay. I have, the one thing that I want to be able to tell people is that have we done everything we can possibly do to solve this problem? And right now, the answer to that is no, we haven't, which is in part why I wanted to have this conversation tonight with you myself. And the other thing is am I giving our police department every tool that I possibly can give them to help solve a problem? When somebody sends us an email about the harassment and the issues, and or like Robin read one earlier this evening.
Right.
That's another tool in the toolbox, and if it works, and we've seen it work just up the road fabulously, how can I say no to putting that tool in the toolbox? But that's just me.
And Chief Grimaldi and I have already spoken about that, and that's almost word for word what he said.
Okay.
He said that this ordinance gives him another tool in
Well,
the
the chief and I are in agreement. I need to go back. That's. Let me give you a second to take a breath, and at this point, I know that we probably got a couple people that want to speak to this, so let's hear from the public. Okay. Robert, I know you're chewing.
Can I sit anywhere?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
There are a whole lot more seats available now.
Mayor, council members, Robert Reinigen, 1425 Dexter Drive, Port Orange. I still believe, as I've testified or mentioned earlier other times, that you're really making a problem out of something that's not really a big problem. And I think the chief has enough tools in his toolbox. He can address most of them. But what I'd like to hear him talk about is he keeps using the word anecdotal. And, maybe I don't understand the word, but to me that's, it's like folklore, and it's hearsay. And so I don't think it's really considered acceptable, valid testimony. And I really would appreciate that being explained.
Thank you. Who else? Nobody present? Robin, I guess you get to go ahead and read your comments.
All right, this is from Maureen Mahone. I have been a law-abiding citizen of Port Orange for 30 years and take much pride in calling Port Orange my home. In the last few months, sorry, I didn't put my mic back on. In the last few months, I have been approached by panhandlers not wearing face coverings, asking for money in front of Target in Port Orange. Most recently in front of Ross and Walgreens on August 15th, 2020, while attempting to enter my vehicle, and once I replied no with my face mask on, this male panhandler on a bike screamed obscenities at me and tried to imitate me while staying on the bike by my vehicle. I reported this incident to the Port Orange Police on Monday, August 17th, 2020. I was informed by the officer on duty that the influx of this homeless population is because Daytona Beach put a fine and jail sentence in place. Obviously, Daytona knew the panhandlers would come to Port Orange and Ormond Beach to avoid that. This influx needs to be addressed immediately, as the safety reputation of Port Orange influences many to move here, and the safety of our citizens is most important regardless of the current pandemic. Efforts must be made to curtail this issue for our many residents who respect our city. Thank you.
That's all we got?
That's all I had for
Okay.
panhandling, yes, sir.
Comes back to us. Comments, questions? I would like to, and let me go ahead and get this out because you'll probably have comments and questions on this, but I'd like to accept a motion to authorize the city attorney to negotiate engagement with Mr. Khan and subject to our approval.
So just
And
to
Matt, you can
I
help
jump
me.
in? Yeah. So just to let you know, we've engaged Mr. Khan, and that is for the work that's been done so far.
Mhm.
And then that engagement, we've already kind of negotiated. I've used some of the other contracts that were negotiated. So we already have a contract structure in place. It would just be a matter of whether council gives us the direction to move forward. So it's kind of a contingent agreement, if you will. So all I would need tonight is direction to move forward with the ordinance, and we will get started tomorrow.
It'll be done by Friday.
and be done maybe by year end. I don't want to.
I swear I heard him say December 1st. You roll the tape back. I think we can get done by December 1st.
Ashley won't be the one that holds you up. Let's just
I
put
know
it that way.
Let's get the motion on the floor so we can discuss it.
I move that we move ahead with having Attorney Khan craft an ordinance related to Port Orange,
As recommended by the city attorney.
as recommended by our illustrious city attorney, Matthew Jones.
May I have a second?
Is that it? You're done with that one?
Yeah,
I'll second.
there you
Okay.
go.
Discussion?
I think we've come this far. I definitely think that as a city and as a council, we should allow this research to play out, allow the ordinance to be constructed, and then make that decision once all that's done and all that material is in front of us, and we've had a chance to look at all of the T's that have been crossed and the I's dotted as they pertain to us and our city, and then we make that decision there. And then this issue will be, at least to some degree, addressed as whatever, I mean, really, I think it's the other alternative that we haven't looked at in the years we've been talking about this. So that would just be my comments with that.
Yeah, I guess I'll make a final comment. I've really enjoyed the discussion. You know, that's the benefit of having a council like this that does the research and asks the right question. And I've appreciated Mr. Khan to come here, and I don't regret going to at this distance with this. I don't think I'm personally willing to go any further. You know, the idea that, you know, I understand we can regulate speech. We do it all the time with political speech and commercial speech, but that's different than an individual's message that they're communicating on the side of the road. Frankly, panhandling is a message I don't want to hear, and many people do not want. And however, I think we get into very dangerous territory when we continue to expand the limitations on content-specific speech. And these laws are presumptively unconstitutional, subject to strict scrutiny right from the get-go. And I don't believe that it's going to pass the Reed versus Gilbert decision. I hope I'm proven wrong, and it looks like you might have the opportunity to do that, and I certainly wish it the best.
Councilman, I hope I don't have the opportunity. I want you to
Right.
have ordinance that never gets challenged.
Any other comments? There being none, call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
No.
Councilmember Tremont.
No.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-2. Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Have a drive safe home.
Speaking to you individually, and a pleasure to represent the city. Thank you.
Safe drive home, please.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
First reading of ordinance number 2020-29, an ordinance of the city of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 42, Article 2, Section 42-26, D and E by deleting reference to 1 acre or less, providing for an owner of a lot to maintain it regardless of the size, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Motion to approve ordinance number 2020-29.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The item is open and on the floor for discussion. First reading. Jake, who's recapping this for us?
Looks like that would be me this late at night.
Okay.
This is just to clean up our code and allow code enforcement to clean up properties, like it says, regardless of size. We have some in the city that are getting a little unruly, and we'd like the ability to take care of ensuring the owners do proper lot maintenance.
Questions, comments, council? Would anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, final comments? Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. Item 26 is approval of interlocal agreement with Volusia County Animal Services. The recommended motion is to improve said agreement. May I have such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, second. The item's open on the floor for discussion. Jake, what's the recap on this one?
So this just gives us another opportunity to do TNR in a different location. Gives us a little bit of flexibility where we don't have to go to Halifax Humane. As you're well aware, Halifax Humane is limited to the amount of trap, neuter, and other things they can do during the day. And occasionally we have opportunity to collect a lot of cats in dangerous situations where we need to I have to choose my words carefully, but take care of them quickly, and this just gives us another avenue. This is something that wasn't available to us before, but the county's kind of opened up their arms to us, and we'd like to get an agreement
nice
together
surprise.
so we can take care of that.
Questions?
And it should in no way, by the way, limit our, we're not moving our funding stream away from HHS. This is just another contractor, if you will, that can perform the duties.
Another tool in the box.
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Questions or comments for the city manager?
Just to
Or on the
piggyback,
item?
just to piggyback on that, you also have built in this agreement a mutual aid for certain emergent circumstances involving animal control. You only have a couple animal control officers, so this gives you a little bit of backup for the big cases that we've
that
seen
I like
even
a lot.
recently. So
84 cats in one house.
Anyone here care to speak to the item? There being none, back to us. Final comments, questions? Call the roll.
Councilmember Ford.
Yes.
Councilmember Tremont.
Yes.
Councilmember Philtner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bastian.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 5-0. City attorney,
nothing further
thank
tonight.
you. City manager,
Nothing.
thank you. City council reports, First Step Shelter.
Oh, man. I did not prepare for that. However, I can say very briefly, the safe zone is moving along, almost fully constructed. We did just announce and put forward our regulations on how that's going to be operating procedures for that. So I'll have more information next time, but that's going forward very quickly, which is what we all really care about and how that's going to.
That's what gets us Pottinger compliant.
Correct.
Okay. Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce, we heard from them tonight. So, and we know what's going on with them. They've got their after hours virtually tomorrow, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Any other business come before us this evening? And Jake, you said I couldn't get us out of here before 10:30. Everybody have a good night.
Even a blind squirrel gets a nut.
You have something else?
No, I'm going to wait till.
Oh, I see. You're